Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order, like I say, and then when we get down to public presentations, if Councillor is not on yet, Sherry will, oh, there she is. Okay, she's on board now. Okay, great. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll have a closed meeting report. Shelley, can you give us that?
Yes, that earlier, council met earlier this evening in closed session as permitted by section 239 2B to discuss personnel matters, and that is the extent of my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any conflict of interest amongst our council members here tonight? Okay, seeing none, I need a motion to adopt the published agenda. And before we do that, Shelley has a notice of motion from Councillor Verbeek. So Councillor Verbeek, if you want to.
I can actually.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep. Okay. So through you, Mr. Mayor, the adoption of the published agenda with the following amendments. Councillor Verbeek has provided a notice of motion that we propose to add as item 15.2.3, and we're presented at the appropriate time. Okay. So.
Okay, with the addition, I need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Guerin, all in favor? Councillor Bondi, did you have a question?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, during old business, I would like to talk about the affordable housing report that we brought forward in April 2019. If we could just get an update on that in old business.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Carry. Thank you. And we'll move into the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting for August 4th. Need a mover, please, on that one. Councillor Verbeek and Councillor Bjorkman. All in favor? It's carried. And we'll go right into public presentations. And is Mr. Vokes, he's not on, eh? No, I don't think Mr. Vokes is on. So if he comes in, we'll go back to him. So we'll go right into Daryl Dufour. So is Daryl on board?
Yes, it's right there.
Okay, go ahead, Daryl.
There he goes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead with your presentation, please.
Okay. I'd just like to start off with good evening, Mayor Snively, Deputy Mayor Meloche, and the rest of the council for allowing me to present my case. I'd like to start off with reading Ontario Municipal Board ruling, issued date December 30th, 2002, decision order number 1768. It has to do with permit and grandfathering in changes in bylaws and that. The rule that the board consistently applies in matters where policies are changed in relation to a developmental proposal is that every proposal should be judged on the basis of the policies as they existed on the date of the application. This is a well-known principle confirmed by numerous cases and as a result of confirmation by the courts binding on the board as a result of the clergy decision, Clergy Properties Limited versus City of Mississauga, 1996, OMBD, number 1840. As it is known, it is a principle that is normally evoked and defended by landowners and developers in situations where the public authority attempts to change the rules after an application has been made. In most cases, the clergy doctrine works to their advantage by requiring the application of the former rules. Where it does not, landowners will usually consent to the application of new rules, but only if the consent, well, the newer rules apply. This has been firmly regarded as fair. Okay, I think that describes a lot of my case, but for a little bit of history here, for the council that doesn't know me, my name is Daryl Dufour. I'm a resident of Ward 3 of the town. I own a farm in Ward 2 on County Road 12. the farm has a low grade. It floods often and drowning crops and costing much money. Late planting seasons and many extra costs. I decided.
Oh, go ahead, Daryl.
Still
I thought
hear
you
me?
were done. Go ahead. Yep, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Oh, I got a bunch. I decided to raise the land up so I could get some flow, raise the grade to move the water out. There's areas of that farm that are 4 inches below the bottom of the road ditch. That tells you how low the grade is. So I approached SLR to bring Phil in, a construction company, to help with the work. We obtained the permits, the bylaw at the time. Wayne Mills was in charge at that time. So we discussed what was to take place. Ditching all around the property, topsoil removed, Phil brought in, topsoil replaced. The grade was not to be higher than the road level. The bylaw says I can go 39 inches above road grade. I'm only at road grade.
Okay,
So,
Daryl,
yes.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to rush you along, but usually it's 5 minutes, eh? So,
Oh, okay.
okay, so I'm not being rude, but that's our policy.
No, I understand you got a lot on there. Okay, long story short, had the permit. Everything's been done according to plan. The soil has to be super clean because it's going back into farming. So it was going to take a long time to fill. And Wayne Mills was told this and agreed, and it was probably going to be around a 5-year project. Permit. So we obtained the permit, and we asked, do we have to renew this? A couple times. He says, no, I know what you're doing. You're good. It's understandable. So everything was going. We're filling it piece by piece. So last year, 2019, in the spring, we were getting 7-8 acres done. We had a lot of dirt coming in. Well, Kevin Carter took over for Wayne Mills. At that time, he decided to pull the permit because it was expired, was the only excuse I had, which it was not, because it was given the okay to be open, an open permit. So all work was stopped. The property is stripped. It's a mess. There's complaints about weeds and everything else, costing me money. And as far as I'm concerned, that permit was pulled unfair. Everything's the regulations and everything of the permit.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you, Daryl.
Thank you, Mr. Dufour. Go ahead.
Before I open it up to council, I'd like Kevin Carter to, Kevin, you're there?
Yes, good
Kevin?
evening. Yes,
Go
can you
ahead,
hear me?
Kevin. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin. I'd like you to speak on this first, and then I'll open it up to council.
All right, through your worship, I'd like to start off with just a little bit of history first. Under the old bylaw, which Mr. Dufour was issued the permit for, was bylaw 843. I'll start off with section 4.5. There's not that many hurdles you have to cross to get a permit back then. It starts off with an officer shall issue a permit upon the following conditions being satisfied. That a satisfactory lot grading plan has been received showing the extent of the works, the maximum elevation of the raised lands, and the measures proposed to control stormwater runoff. That the town is satisfied that the stormwater control measures, including swales, tile drains, or retaining walls, are adequate to prevent the runoff of stormwater to adjacent lands. With that being said, we go to section 4.7. An officer may impose any other conditions that are in the opinion of the officer required to fulfill the requirements of the bylaw. So basically, how this all started, I inherited this this permit, and this is not the only permit I revoked. There were 4 other grade fill permits I revoked all at the same time, all driven by complaints by abutting neighbors being adversely affected by water. That then, what I required of SLR, which is the permit holder, the contractor for all 4 permits that I revoked, was basically to supply new drawings showing the swales, the flow of the swales, the grades, and a benchmark off the center line, crown of the road, because Mr. Dufour's has never been an issue about the height. His height is quite fine. I did not revoke any permit based on timeframes of expiry of 1 year. That does not even exist in our bylaw, the old bylaw. So through numerous complaints, which led to enforcement, I have then contacted SLR, and the complaints again where the drawings were insufficient. So I had to listen to the complaints from all these 4 budding property owners. I went back to the office, I pulled out the files, and to my surprise, I came to the conclusion that these permits were issued in error, meaning the drawings were not according to section 4.5. They in fact don't show any swales, direction, or benchmarks. That's what led me to section 310. I talked to SLR, please submit new drawings and I can have this permit reissued. That was over a year ago. I have not received any new drawings from Mr. Dufour or SLR or anyone related to that property. And I have met with Mr. Dufour and members of his family and indicated all we need is drawings. However, time has gone on a year. We're under a new bylaw now, bylaw 1799. But going back to the authority I had at the time I revoked these, we go to section 310 under administration and enforcement. I have been blessed with the enforcement of this bylaw. It says, if an officer is satisfied that there is a contravention of this bylaw, the officer may revoke the permit, which I did. And it goes on, and may make an order requiring the owner of the land or the persons who caused or permitted the placing of the dumping to remove the topsoil and restore the land to its original condition. I have never asked anyone to restore anything. All I asked for is new drawings that are in compliance with the old bylaw and to address these complaints I'm getting from our ratepayers, the town of Essex, that are getting adversely affected because of lack of swales. These are major undertakings of fill. I'm not talking a residential lot where we're incorporating a septic system and lot grading. These are large lots, 20, 50, 100 acres with constant flow of trucks, large volumes of dirt that are the first thing that should be done on a big dump site or fill site, I should say, is the swales. Incorporate the perimeter swales for we don't have any adverse effect. With Mr. Dufour's property, from the complaints and visiting the site, there were no swales. In fact, those swales were just incorporated 4 or 5 weeks ago. So under that authority, all I asked for was drawings and I'll get everybody up and running again. That has not happened. SLR has now changed names. They're known as Sterling Ridge. I have 2 applications submitted this year and 2 permits have been issued. So again, I had the authority to revoke it. I did. And it says I may issue an order. I did not issue any orders. I talked to the manager of all 4 projects in my office, had the original copies and wrote right on the face, revoked. It was up to him to go to his clients, get drawings. Who pays? I don't know. But no one is complying with the old bylaw, nor has anyone or the proponent before us tonight made application under the new bylaw. That's it, Your Worship.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there any questions from council? Deputy Mayor Malash, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. The proponent, Mr. Dufour, were you aware, I know our bylaw enforcement officer went to SLR, but were you aware of having to do drawings that showed which direction your water was flowing on your old map that you had submitted with your original permit?
I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor. I was trying to unmute the phone here or whatever. She was talking in my ear. I didn't quite get that question.
Okay, I'll repeat.
I would just like to respond to Kevin's comment first, if I may.
No,
Is it possible?
Mr. Dufaur, Daryl, you already spoke. Now it's up to council to ask you a question, and Deputy Mayor Malash was asking you a question.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
Darryl,
Okay, can you repeat that, please? Because I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, he's going to repeat it. Yes.
Mr. Dufour, my question is, with your original permit, you had to submit a drawing of the property, and Mr. Carter's saying that there was missing data on the permit, on the drawing for the permit. So he needed to know about flows and swales and so on. The ditches that are involved. I mean, I was at the property and I did see the ditches and the swales. He's looking for a diagram that marked which direction your water was flowing and all of that. So he'd be able to know, what the issues could potentially be, because he's an expert on water flows. He asked SLR, but did SLR get a hold of you, or did Mr. Carter get a hold of you to ask you for that? I'm wondering if you knew that you had to bring that picture
The first
back.
time Mr. Carter had talked to me was July. This is the first time he had talked to me personally. And that was the first time he admitted he was even at that site since this all took place and he took over to start with. The only ditch that he asked to get put in was from the road about 150 feet. All the rest of the ditching was already done. And the neighbor has been complaining all the time, draining her water onto my land all the time, originally. That's a complaint he's talking about. And she will be complaining when the sun gets up in the east and goes down in the west.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But there was a map issued showing all the levels of the grades across the property, an aerial view.
And then showing the ditch.
So with the lower the grade is which way the water would flow, if you knew how to read the maps. I don't know if SR explained to him how to read it or not, or if he couldn't understand it, but there was a map issued.
So showing the ditches and which way the water was flowing and all that.
It showed the levels of the grade and the water would flow the way the grades are. And it was put in, ditching was going to go around all the property. So with the grades going across the land, the water's going to flow at a lower grade in the ditch.
Correct. Okay, so further, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
So I know that all of those properties coming right from Walker Road, I mean, this property's on the west side of the old abandoned railroad track that turned into the Chrysler Canada Greenway. All of the properties in that area are low. So
yes.
Your property's been existing there for a long time. I mean, even your next door neighbor to west of you, her property is low, and it's lower than the road. You can see it right standing there looking at it. Even myself, who's not an expert, I can see that her property is very low.
That's right.
So,
the back of her property is now all draining into my field and into the new the ditches I put in. At no
Right.
charge to her, and it's draining her property totally. And she's the one doing the complaining.
Okay, Daryl, let's just get to the issue here. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Malash, with it.
Yeah. So I know that anybody that builds a house in that area, they're bringing in all kinds of dirt to raise their house because the properties are low in that area. When some properties were lower, like this field, I would imagine the next door neighbor to the west was probably flowing in. Even the property to the east was probably flowing into this property because it was that low. But
Yes,
the
Camargue's property was flowing in too, yes.
Canard River surrounds this area on both on the back side and the front side of this this farmland. Like it's the front side, it's not as close, but in the back side, it's closer to this property. And I can understand why you'd want to build this property up totally. If I were there too, I'd want to be doing the same thing. I've seen the results of where you have put in landfill, and now it looks like a decent farm. I've seen the property, and I can see the difference totally, and I can understand why it would have flooded previously, and that you would have lost a crop every year that you plant, basically. So it makes sense that you're bringing in the fill. The question is whether, and I understand that we pulled the permits on a number of people in the past because of the fact that there was some carelessness that was going on, I guess is the best way of putting it, with our roads, etc. But in looking at this is trucks would be going from county road to county road. They don't travel on any of our municipal roads whatsoever. And from what I can see, Mr. Dufour, you're being responsible in how you're handling this. It's just to satisfy our conditions. And I don't think that, as far as I'm concerned, you don't need an engineer to draw the drawing, as long as there's a map of some type, even if you hand draw it, to show where the water's flowing to. So as it flows off the field into your ditches, what direction are your ditches going to, so that our bylaw enforcement officer and permit issuer here can figure out where the water is going, so that he understands if there's going to be any issues. So if that can be done, I'm personally, after looking at the property and understanding better what you're doing there, I don't really have a problem with what's going on there. And I think we need to, in my opinion, I think we need to look at this and get back to, and particularly after you read that first statement about, and I was wondering about grandfathering myself when we first put this bylaw in, but someone's finally questioning it. But that is my opinion. And is there any problem trying to get a map to Mr. Carter of what way the waters are flowing?
A hand-drawn map, I have no problem. I sent everybody a hand-drawn map to just show the break. The ditches are marked. I can put arrows in which way the water's going to flow. If that's satisfactory, I can use that exact map if he wants. He did not get a copy, so he probably doesn't know what I'm talking about, but all you guys should have been sent one today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dufour.
If
Mr.
that's
Carter,
acceptable, because that wasn't offered to me. It had to be an engineer's map is what he wanted originally.
Okay. Thank you, Daryl. Are you done, Deputy Mayor?
yes.
Okay, and Mr. Carter, did you want to respond to that?
When I revoked this permit back last year, we were still under the authority of bylaw 843. I dealt with the contractor. I revoked these permits specifically from the Ontario Limited company that these permits were issued to. I did not talk to the landowners. I talked with the general contractor, at which time has moved on, and administration was instructed to create a new bylaw. For any permit I issue will be under the new bylaw, bylaw 1799, which we addressed a lot of the hiccups from our past bylaw. An engineer will be required now of any of these proponents on large bulk fill lots.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Anybody else? Councillor Van Dolen, go ahead.
Can I speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I disagree with with our delegation's claim that writing arrows on a hand-drawn map are going to prove anything or fix anything in this situation. I was out there this morning and I had a look at that property, and as a rural landowner myself with a creek running through it, I could see that his neighbors would have really severe problems due to the massive amount of landfill that's already been brought in there. I shouldn't say landfill, I mean clean fill. It is clean fill, that's very clear. It's good stuff. But you could see that the neighbor will probably have an acre or more of water in their backyard because of this new fill. Mr. Dufour refers to his swales and ditches, but they're very clearly brand new because there are no weeds growing on them. So that means that they had to have been done in the past 6 to 8 weeks. So they weren't there before. I don't think we could just throw this neighbor under the bus and say, oh, well, he had an old permit, he gets to flood your land. I think that's completely wrong. I think we really do need to demand an engineering drawing of Sterling Ridge, SLR, whatever they're called. I mean, that's a very large company. They're working on the new Gordie Howe Bridge. They just brought in like 2 million cubic yards of fill to that site. So they're quite capable of doing engineering drawings. They do that kind of stuff every day, and we should require this. And I want to remind the rest of council that with all the construction going on, especially residential construction in all the towns around Windsor and Essex County, the disposal of clean fill has become a big business. It's difficult and it's expensive to get rid of this stuff. Obviously, this site is one of the sites that contractors are going to be using to dispose of their fill from other towns. So we've got a bunch of these operations going on, and we can't just use them. We can't allow these large contractors to just literally steamroller the neighbors and say, well, too bad you get flooded now, or maybe it'll drain later. Because the claim that everything is draining fine, this is being said after 8 weeks of no rain. I want to see that after the next 2-inch rain. Let's go out there and see then the way it looks, and that'll tell the story, not squiggly arrows on a piece of paper or what it looks like now. So I'd want an engineering drawing or a delay of several months so we can see what happens to that site after a major rain. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Verbeek, you're next.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Dufour and Mr. Carter. I too went out to the site. I got the invitation from our deputy mayor, but it was a little too late, so I was able to meet with Mr. Dufour later in the afternoon. I just want to try and get my grasp of it, rudimentary grasp of what's happening here, and maybe Mr. Carter or Mr. Dufour can clear up if I'm not getting this correct. So Mr. Dufour's property was very low, as the deputy mayor pointed out, and he was unable to successfully farm it. So he went and got the permits to try and build it up. He spoke with the, when he got the permits, he was very clear that in an effort to bring in good quality soil, he was going to do this over a period of time. And so he was doing that clearly because as our deputy mayor pointed out, that nice plot where he's finished, which is nowhere near the grade of the road, is growing a crop nicely right now. It's not flooding as he's experienced in the past. So also, Mr. Carter, you said that the swales were done maybe 4 weeks ago. So I'm assuming you saw them. I don't know one way or the other, but it sure seemed to me like they were really good swales. It's going to take the property off of the neighbors, or the water off the neighbor's property. Now, I did understand that the neighbors had been making, complaints even prior to him bringing in a lot of this dirt to eventually build up the land beside theirs. As you know, the work that he had been building up was behind the neighbors. So I'd heard from that the complaints, a lot of them were also were invalid because of the pond that the neighbors had and such. I just want some clarity, because myself, after being at the property and looking at all the work that this farmer, our resident, is doing just to better his ability to grow a good crop, and following all the guidelines that were attached to his initial permit. I came tonight with the intent to support his request to reinstate his original permit, in good faith. And then he pointed out to us that there's actually this OMB ruling that could potentially put us at a liability situation if we don't reinstate it as it was. I don't think he meant to be kind of threatening. I'm just saying that I would hope that we're going to be able to do whatever we can to help him in his efforts to make his farmland, improve his ability to get a better crop by building it up. He seems to be making his effort. It almost sounds like there was a breakdown there in communication with the company he's brought in that's shipping his dirt. Because I think Mr. Carter just said the swales are done and it's just drawings that would be the drawback. Because I just want to find out what we need to do tonight to reinstate his original permit so he can continue on the work that he's been doing to improve his farmland.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. I was out at the site too, just before we go any further. I was out the site today, and I'm a little discouraged at how long it took to put these swales in there. I mean, we knew there was a problem there, and I'm sure, Daryl, you knew there was a problem there. There was flooding there. Absolutely, there was flooding because the land was built up. I have a concern that only in the last 4 to 6 weeks you put them swales in there. And I looked at the neighbor's property, and I agree with Councillor Vandendal. Those swales, she is very, very low now compared to your property. She's definitely going to get flooded. There's no question about it. There's going to be a heavy rain there, and she's definitely going to get flooded. But my concern was, you knew you were bringing in fill. You knew you had put swales in there. Why did it take 4 to 6 weeks to put these swales in? Just the last 4 to 6 weeks. So that to me, that was discouraging. But I'll open it up to the council again. Councillor Bjorkman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of observations here. We're kind of talking about the whole job, but let's go back to the rules. Let's go back to the process. Mr. Carter informed us that the original permit wasn't fully filled up. They did not meet the obligation of the original permit. There was no drawing showing where the elevations were going to be. We're starting from here, we're moving to there. This is how we're going to maintain the water. None of that was there. So the permits were pulled by SLR, not by the farm owner. So went to SLR and asked, can you do these drawings for me? We need these drawings in order to continue on with this permit. The drawings were not provided, so the permits were pulled from SLR. That's who was holding the permit. Since that time, we've had a new bylaw instated. There are new criteria for doing these things because, frankly, we've all understood how we flood. We now know it's more to it than just the piece of creek that's out behind your property. It's about the entire area. It's making sure that this watershed is running properly. That's what we do now. It used to be you could just do your own. Just make sure you've got your own heading out to that creek and everything's good. That's not good enough anymore. So we follow the rules, and I know that Mr. Dufour has told us about the grandfathered in clause there, and that may be. However, we are going to go by the rules and the procedures that we put in place. And what we've put in place is that was pulled because there was a problem with the original permit. It wasn't taken care of properly. If they want to continue on now, they got to do a new submission, and they have to go by the rules that are enforced today because the game has changed. And I think we need to keep our eye on that. There's all kinds of stuff around this. Why didn't you do this then? Why didn't you? The permit wasn't filled up properly. It was requested. It wasn't done. Gave them time to do it. Pulled the permit. Now it's time to start over again. It's pretty much that
cut, and we need to support our bylaws and our bylaw officers. We send them out there to do a job and to enforce the rules that we make. We need to stand behind those. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying, Counselor. We can't change rules and tell our bylaw officer how to run his job. Anyways, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Malash. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to point one thing out. The permit was not issued to SLR. The permit's in Daryl Dufour's name. We all received a copy of it by mail. And that was my question. Why did Mr. Dufour not get notification that he needed to have a new drawing? That's why I asked Mr. Dufour, were you aware that you had to have a new drawing, on the old permit? And he said, no, he hadn't heard anything about this until July. But the permit is issued to Daryl Dufour. It's not issued to SLR. That's where the dirt's coming from. And if Mr. Carter got a hold of SLR, maybe perhaps he should have got a hold of Mr. Dufour as well to make sure the drawing happened. So that's why I'm saying this permit should never have been evoked originally. The issuer, the person that the permit was issued to, wasn't informed that there was a problem with it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Guerin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Carter. So on the old bylaw, to obtain a permit, what type of drawing would have been required from an applicant? Would it have been as simple as a hand drawing, or is it spelled out in the bylaw that it has to be an engineered drawing? And second to that, was there ever any drawing, when you open up the file and looked into it, was there an original drawing even ever submitted?
Go ahead, Kevin. You can answer that.
Yes, through your worship, I do have the file here in front of me. There is a drawing. There's actually a drawing and 2 aerial photography printouts that show nothing on it but the aerial itself. The drawing that I do have here clearly shows grades marked all over the property. And that's it, period. Nothing more, no benchmark, no swales, no direction of flow, no cross sections, nothing. Was an engineer required then? No. It is now, not then. But in terms of the contractor, when we issue permits to, like, say, a homeowner, Mr. Smith, we deal with the general contractor. The contractor on the permit is 971173 Ontario Limited. That is a sister company to SLR. Our only contact ever has been with SLR. When I spoke with SLR, he informed me that he's going to talk to his clients. And if we read the bylaw, I do not have to get a hold of the permit holder. I am to, or it says either the property owner or his agent. I have never dealt with any property owners with bulk fill. I've always dealt with SLR. And our building inspector of the time, he's the one that dealt with SLR all the time. I inherited this. I also inherited the complaints. I investigated, I made a decision. Please submit drawings. No drawings, the permit's being revoked, because I feel these permits were issued in error. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Guerin, further, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, so that's, I guess, the point I'm coming to is we all want it to be done right. I'm sure the delegate wants it done right as well. But I think it sounds like initially he did submit with his permit the drawing that he was asked to submit, and whether it had the markings of swales or not on it, we did accept it. And I'm assuming we let him go ahead and do it. He did. So that's kind of the predicament we're in. It sounds to me like we did permit it. And now since then, it looks like we're, with the new bylaw and the complaints, you know, Mr. Carter's acting appropriately, but I think that's the issue here is I think the applicant did what he was asked to do and was permitted the permit originally.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? Councillor Bondi?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think right now I kind of feel like we are making our small farmers, some of their operations cost prohibitive for them to continue farming. I did go on site and I took a walk around too. The swale that is done is by the neighbors on the west side. So the neighbors on the west side should not have any concerns with flooding. The neighbors, I believe, on the east side are family members. So I don't think that they're going to have concerns as well. So I did ask earlier today if there was any stop work orders issued, because I'd love to see that. And also through you, Mr. Mayor, to either our CAO or our bylaw enforcer, when was the permit pulled? And then I have further comments, please, but I'd like to know when the permit was originally pulled.
Go ahead, Kevin. When was it pulled?
Through your worship, the permit was issued August 7th, 2015, 5.5 years ago.
And when was it pulled?
July 2019.
July 2019. Okay, so last year when we did our bylaw, August 6, 2019, I believe, is when we changed our new bylaw. So it seems to me like it was pulled just before we passed our new bylaw. Whether, you know, that was coming or the complaints led to us pulling it, but I do believe that this situation, I think we're making it very difficult for this farmer to make a living off this land. I do believe the concerns with the neighbors to the west can be mitigated, and I would like to see the permit reissued again. But I don't believe that the numbers might not be there with council tonight. But I think that that we're just making it a little bit more difficult than it was, considering half of his property approximately was already in the process of being filled. The type of fill he's trying to get is a little difficult to get. So it was taking a lot longer than he thought, or longer than he thought. The original bylaw that I printed off today, that 843, has no expiry date on it. So in essence, we're leaving everything with the discretion of our bylaw officer, which is fine. But I think that Mr. Dufour is a victim of circumstances with switching files with bylaw officers, which is really unfortunate for this particular resident. Like when we as council make a bylaw and say that the term 2014 to 2018, when the new term of council comes in, we don't throw out everything that we did in the previous term. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? So,
Can I say something?
No, you already spoke, Daryl. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through your worship. I kind of want to reiterate what Councillor Bondi's saying. I feel like this poor farmer, young farmer, who's trying to make ends meet, is being played as a pawn here, because we've got this large company, SLR, that we're all saying, yeah, it's all their fault. They should have got a hold of us and sent the new drawings in, and they should have done the $5,000 worth of engineering costs that are going to happen. And I just think it's wrong that we're doing this to a small independent farmer, young guy who's trying to make ends meet. And farmers are important to us here. We're trying to make sure that farms are viable. This farm was not viable because it sat underwater and the crops kept getting ruined. All this guy's trying to do is bring in some dirt, some good dirt, topsoil, and it's taking longer because he's trying to bring in good dirt. He's not just letting them dump anything that they want to dump. If we tell him that he's got to go back to SLR at this point in time and have engineering drawings done for $5,000 and come up with a deposit that we originally wanted that would have been around $5,000, it's SLR is going to say, hit the road, buddy. We're done. And he's going to be stuck in the middle of this big SLR and what the town of Essex wants. When in 2015, he started off with very good intentions. If there's problems with the drainage, let's get it fixed. Just tell him what he needs to do. Let him put the drainage in. If we want 10-foot deep ditches there to make sure the water goes away, then that's what we do. But we've got a guy here who's just a small independent farmer who's trying to make ends meet. Let's help him out here a bit. He's a little pond in the middle of an SLR in the town of Essex. I'm looking at the license on my other screen right now. It says issue 2, Daryl Dennis Dufour, not SLR. There's a company on here that says the contractor's name is 97, where he's getting the dirt from, but the license is the permit is issued to Daryl Dufour, and he was not contacted at the time to let him know that he's got to do something about this. SLR maybe thought, we'll see if we need him still. We'll dish the money out to do what Essex wants us to do, but we've got other shoes that we can fill right now. We can put the dirt somewhere else, and who cares about Daryl Dufour at this point in time? He's a little pond that's got stuck between two big corporations. We need to do something here to make sure that he can advance on this. He's got half his farm done. Let's give him the opportunity to finish the other part of the farm. If we want deeper ditches, tell him that's what we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Vandenol, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, well, this is going to be sending some interesting messages to our residents. I encourage all residents to go on Google Maps and go to this address, 2209 Talbot Road, and take an aerial view of what's going on here. This poor little farmer guy is using a fleet of giant trucks from a multi-million-dollar construction industry to bring in construction waste from all over Essex County to flood a little landowner next door. The person we should be protecting is the little landowner next door, not the guy who owns the 100 and whatever acres, who's working hand in hand with a huge contractor to steamroll the little guy. Why are we supporting this big corporation getting rid of its dirt here at the cost of the neighbors of this guy? That to me is baffling. I mean, if that's the message some councilors want to send, that's fine with me, but I'm going to vote against it because I want to vote in favor of the poor neighbor who's going to get flooded out, because apparently a lot of members of this council are willing to look at it when it's dry and accept that that's the truth of what's going to happen when we get some rain, because that's not what's going to happen. It's going to be a terrible situation for that neighbor next door. And again, it's the experts are our staff. The experts are not some guy in a faraway court who was talking about another case that doesn't apply here being read to us without the benefit of any lawyers. That's meaningless. I'm going to vote in favor of the neighbors on this. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Bowman, you're going to make a motion, or?
I just have a comment, actually.
Go ahead.
I think we're going to come out of this looking very poorly on either side, whether we vote for it or against it. Because either if you vote for it and it goes through as proposed, there may be some issues with it. If we vote it down, we've created a problem for the landowner who has already started something. I would rather see it go back to the landowner and our building department and have another look at this to see if something can be worked out, that we can complete the work under the old contract, but I guess alleviate the concerns that have been brought up tonight about the flooding issues. So I think it's better to have another kick at the cat before we make a decision that's going to hurt one side or the other. And maybe we can come up with a decision that would be beneficial to both sides and come up to a common ground. So my motion would be to turn it back to administration and the building department to have another look at this to see if we can come up with a compromise that would work. Because we don't one side's really gonna lose badly and the other side's is gonna be in the wrong spot. So that'll be my motion.
So, Counselor Bowman, are you willing to make a motion to receive it and send it back to Kevin and see how he can work with Kevin to alleviate the problem of flooding? I think this is the biggest issue here is the flooding issue. Okay, because I just
if that's a required motion, then that's the motion I'll make.
yeah, because I was out there today, and the depth of the swales.
Point of order. We've got a motion. We need a seconder. If we're going to talk to.
Well, he never made a motion yet.
Yeah, I'm making that motion.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Seconded.
Okay, second by Counselor Vanadol. Discussion? Counselor Garen, go ahead. Discussion?
Yeah, discussion, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I think Councillor Bowman's approach is probably the best avenue to go down right now. You know, I'm not sure how much time we would need on it, but I'd like to see a compromise if we can. I see, we want to make sure it's done right. I see the point of making sure it's done right and having, you know, the proper drawings and everything, but I still can't get past the fact we issued him the permit and to go, and based on the drawing he'd already submitted. So yeah, I like the compromise. I think it's a great suggestion.
Thank you, Counselor. Chris, go ahead. Chris, you had something to say? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just with respect to the motion, I think it's important that if variances are going to be made to any bylaw, that it's council's decision to make those variances or to make those adjustments. It's not staff. I don't want staff to be in the gray area of making compromise. Our job is to uphold the bylaw. Council's decision is, and they're right, is to manage that bylaw, change that bylaw, amend that bylaw, but not staff's. That's going to put us in a bad position when the next guy comes and says, hey, you did that for that person. Can you tweak it for me? So it needs to be a council decision that way. And I think I go back to a little bit on the permit itself. Even the old permit, I think it's 4.7 in the old permit states that regardless of what was provided, there's opportunity throughout the life of the permit for the chief building official to ask for any additional information required to ensure that the bylaw is being upheld. And part of that bylaw talks about negatively impacting neighbors and whatnot. So the fact that the new CBO, took over, which is when you look at July, you're into the warmer months of when Kevin was sole CBO in 2019. Noted, that he was looking for some more information with respect to that. Even in the old bylaw, he can ask for that information, which is what he did. And we're at where we're at. So I guess I would look to amend the motion to say, if you want administration to come back with a report with options, then council can make the decision to go outside of their bylaw, is how I would like to see that come then.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Are you willing, Councillor Bowman, to do that?
I believe so, because the whole premise that we're working on is that there's a project that was started under an old bylaw, and now things have changed, and it's not deemed to be correct under even though the old bylaw. So from what I'm hearing, it's about halfway through the process. So I think at this point, it still needs to have some kind of additional work to see if we can come up. I use the word compromise, but you can call it whatever you want. But really, it's to get everybody on the same page that we can have something that we can live with and move forward. I can't see there'll be too many of these coming forward because the bylaw has been changed. So anything coming forward in the future will be under the new bylaw. And I think we're much better prepared to look after those. So there may be one or two of the old ones still to come, but let's see if we can work with the people involved and come up with something. If we can't do it, then obviously we'll have to make a decision one way or the other. But let's give it one more kick at the cat. Thank you.
There was a seconder on that motion? Yeah, it was Councillor Van den Dolen was a seconder. Discussion, Deputy Mayor Malash.
Yeah, I'm willing to go along with what the CAO is saying, but it's got to be in a timely manner. I've got to say that by our next meeting in September, this has got to be resolved and something's got to come back to us. It's not something that I'm willing to sit and wait until next spring or even the winter time when the dirt can't be moved. I want something for this person resolved so that in the fall here, while there's still time for more loads to come in and help them out, that we'd have some action taking place then. So I'm willing to say, let's give it one more kick at the cat. Go back to Kevin. I'm going to say though that I'm not going to be agreeing to something though that would say that he has to have a $5,000 engineering study done on a piece of property where he's already half done and hasn't have, like, I mean, why 5 years ago, like in 2015, why did we not ask for that? Maybe he wouldn't have started it if that had been the request then. So what I'm saying is I'd like to see something come back, but it's more about the drainage and making sure that that neighbor is not getting drained out. I just find it funny that this has been going on for 5 years and this is the first that we're hearing that maybe she has some issues. There's never been a rainstorm that in the last 5 years that would have caused a lot of flooding there. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Deputy Mayor. I agree that it's the drainage is the issue here. Kevin, you want to speak?
Yes, through your worship. These permits were issued quite some time ago, all of them, 5 years ago. I'm not privy to any complaints prior to myself becoming the sole CBO. I know we were receiving complaints for quite some time. It's not until, again, I inherited this and it fell on my lap, at which time I had to investigate. I have had the privilege of meeting up with Mr. Dufour on his property, gave him a copy of the bylaw, what steps he needs to take, and I will issue that permit within days. In terms of the $5,000, that's a number everyone keeps throwing out there. This is not a complicated undertaking in terms of a drawing. I don't believe it would be $5,000. We've had similar drawings submitted, and I happen to ask those questions. How much did this cost you? It was well less than half of that. Now, I know $1,000 could be a lot of money, 5,000 certainly a lot of money. However, I can assure you there was no hidden agenda here. This was complaint driven. The permits were issued in error, and I have other things to do other than revoking people's permits. I clearly acted within the confines of the bylaw, the old one, and I am enforcing the new one. These decisions, I clearly believe the proponent had the right to come to council. This is a municipal bylaw. This is not Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. If it were, it would not be in this form. However, this motion we can certainly address in a timely manner, and we'll report back. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. One more speaker, and then we're going to have to move on. Councillor Verbeek, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Kevin, Mr. Carter. My comments are to you. I came tonight. I'm looking at this request from our resident, a local farmer, to reinstate his permit, and we've heard all of this. And I felt right away like I was in a really tight spot because, of course, I would like to support our farmers, especially after meeting Mr. Dufour and seeing that he's been trying his darndest to get this property up to good farmability. But I also didn't want to be in a place where I was in opposition of you or your job, the important work you're doing. So I wouldn't want to go against you in this. So I'm asking you, by the looks of the swales in that, my understanding is that the neighbor, as the deputy mayor said, has been flooding like so many other people on that entire strip of road, has been flooding for years and has been making complaints for a long time. Since Mr. Dufour has done the new swales that some of us have just walked, do you think that will alleviate some of the water draining onto the neighbor's property? And also, so with the drawings and if there is, if you're happy with the swale work and that the drainage is going to go out to that long strip behind his property that he showed us was his ditch everyone drains through out to the creek, would you be comfortable with us requesting to have the permit reinstated?
Go ahead, Kevin, you can answer that.
Through your worship, I'd rather enforce no bylaws. It'd make my job a lot easier. However, it's not my personal belief. I exercise my authority through your bylaws that you as council pass. You give me the tools, I exercise them. I think if the public were aware that, hey, you don't like what our bylaw officer does, is simply run to council and get things waived.
That would be better.
That's not a precedent setting thing. We'll just tear up all our bylaws because a bylaw is only as good as it can be enforced. That's all I'm doing, enforcing the bylaw.
Exactly.
This permit was issued 5.5 years ago, and 4 or 5 weeks ago, we just got the swales implemented. And I may be corrected, but I know for sure when I was there, there were no swales, but I can assure you they're there now. In terms of a drawing to adversely affect the property owner to the east, which is Mr. Dufour's family member, I'm not too sure whom. I have no drawing that shows how they're going to address the east in terms of swales. Yeah, it's a family member that lives next door for today, but potential future owner, there's another complaint we have to deal with. So I need drawings. What your bylaw calls out, I need. That's all I'm asking, nothing personal. He's not the only permit I revoked. We just need to do what the bylaw says or instruct me to do otherwise. That's it, Your Worship.
Thank you. One last person, Councillor Bondi, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really don't really see this necessarily needing to come back to council and spend more of our time on this. I just think we need to look at this potentially within the old fill permit, see if there is some resolution our bylaw officer can come to with Mr. Percy. The pulling the bylaw is basically like a stop work order, right? So Mr. Dufour has to satisfy that there is a contravention of this bylaw and our town can revoke the permit. So now Mr. Dufour is on notice that there potentially were some issues. So we work out those issues and if it can't be worked out, then it comes back to council, but I don't really want to take up more council time for this. I believe there's lots of other things that we can do. I do like us trying to work together on this, potentially outside of the new bylaw. Because if you look at the dates when we pulled the old bylaw and then instated the new one, I just want to, at this point, move forward on this file and see if we can all come to resolution. COVID has been hard on everybody. It's slowed down a lot of things, and I don't want to make it any harder on members of our community on both sides. I do believe that there is a drainage plan for the house on the west. And I do believe that that house recently sold ownership. So when those owners bought that property, they knew what they were buying and they have a choice to bring in fill themselves. Thank you.
If I may, I'm going to speak last on this here. I'm just going to say that we put bylaws in place. Council is the one that approves bylaws and puts them in place. And I would just like the respect to our employees to follow the bylaws, okay, in respect to our management. So that's why we have bylaws, and then to come to council and change the bylaws halfway through the year, to me, it doesn't make sense. And again, to Mr. Dufour. I'm really disappointed that those swales were put in years and years after that Phil was there. So that's my opinion on the issue. So it's up to council. So we have a motion, and Shelley's going to read the motion.
The motion by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Vanderdolen, to receive the presentation and provide direction to administration to come back with the report, including options. That is the motion on the floor as it stands right now, unless Councillor Bowman wishes to make another friendly amendment. No.
Oh, and that was seconded by
Councillor Vanderdolen.
Councillor Vanendel. So go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I am asking for a friendly amendment to make it a timely decision. Can we make it so that it's decided in 2 weeks? One way or
Councillor
another?
Bowman? Yeah, Councillor Bowman, yes, that'll be fine, Deputy Mayor.
So the amendment would read as for it to come back with options, to come back with the report including options within the next 2 weeks, or the next regular council meeting.
Next 2 weeks or next council meeting?
Go ahead.
I think it's the same.
I would say next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of that motion? Carried. Thank you, Daryl. Sorry it took so long, but you still there, Daryl?
He's muted. He's muted.
I've been muted the whole time.
Okay, so.
I mean, I didn't get to defend myself on these questions. I mean, the swales across that south part of that property, it's been there since the original time. The only new ditch was put from the road to the corner.
Okay.
I mean.
Okay, Daryl, I'm sure Kevin is aware of all that. It's gonna come back. It's gonna come back with recommendations the next meeting. Okay?
Okay, so I have to come in the next meeting for the recommendations? Is that how that works, or?
I don't know if you have to come back. I don't know, but you don't have to come back. There'll be recommendations by council and administration.
Oh, by councilman. Okay, and somebody will contact me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, council.
You're
Mayor,
very-
deputy mayor.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to the next presentation, and that's Eric Naylor for Kona Ice, Windsor, Essex. So, Eric, are you there?
I am here.
Go ahead.
Okay, through the mayor to council. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I'm appearing to ask for an exemption to the transient trader bylaws location restrictions. The bylaw works well for pop-up flower stores and fireworks tents, but it's not really designed for mobile vendors. Some of you know me and some of you don't. So here's a little background so you understand why I care. My family's Essex roots go back to the early 1880s when my Irish ancestors settled on what became the Naylor Side Road. They built a sawmill on the property where Home Hardware is now located, and it eventually became Naylor Lumber. I worked at Naylor Lumber and became the first chairman of the Essex BIA back around 1980. I tell you this to let you know that I understand the needs of businesses with permanent locations, and I care about this town. My partner in Kona Ice, Windsor, Essex, is our daughter, Carrie Garrett. She was previously a partner in First Steps Childcare in Essex and Tecumseh. Carrie approached me looking for funding for a Kona Ice franchise about 4 years ago. At first, I was resistant because I assumed it was selling sugar to kids, and I felt that was wrong. I discovered, though, that 40% of the sugar was removed from our syrup and replaced with stevia and vitamin C and vitamin D so that it actually meets school standards for nutritious snacks. I discovered that Kona Ice slogan is, "Shaved ice is what we do, giving back is who we are." That is at the core of everything they do. And as of the end of 2019, Kona Ice and its franchisees had given back $82 million to their communities. Giving back is very important to me at this point in my life, so I decided that rather than funding the franchise, I wanted to be a partner. I've sat on the board of directors of Essex Region Conservation Foundation for the last few years, but my resources have been more limited than I'd like. So I decided I wanted to be a partner in this venture and build another company that could have a positive impact on our community. Our first truck arrived in May 2018. We immediately obtained our transient vendor's license in Essex. We then discovered that it pretty much prevented us from operating in a manner that worked for us. We were invited to fundraise for Bell River Soccer, and we raised $500 for them the first year. We also worked with other municipalities and began fundraising for other organizations. Because of my Essex business and family background, it didn't seem right to me that we weren't selling and fundraising in our own community. I made town officials aware of our problem and was given hope that the bylaw might be changed. We sponsored the shirts for an Essex travel soccer team and gave them free Konas when we could. We renewed our Essex license in 2019 and did a limited number of events in Essex where we were part of another group's event permit. We continued to fundraise for Bell River Soccer and gave them a check for almost $1,400. We also fundraised for Windsor Soccer, Windsor Lacrosse, many schools in Windsor and Essex County, Relay for Life, Assisted Living, Canadian Transportation Museum, IRCA, and We Care for Kids and other organizations. This year, due to COVID-19, throughout North America, Kona Ice has pivoted from events to neighborhoods and to curbside delivery. We are doing an increasing number of block parties and corporate staff appreciation events. We're having great success in other communities, but have turned down invitations to do neighborhoods in Essex. Essex officials have been sympathetic, but the restrictions still exist. Our truck is called the KEV, the Kona Entertainment Vehicle. Our own three-part mission is as follows. Number one, put smiles on as many faces as possible. Number two, have fun doing it. Number three, create some wealth to allow us to do more of number one and number two. Back in April, we were trying to decide if we should operate or leave our truck in storage. We decided that this year, more than ever, kids needed something to put smiles on their faces. So we pushed ahead. It has been so rewarding to see those smiles. Please let us put smiles on the faces of kids and adults in Essex. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric. Questions from council? Deputy Mayor Malash, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, your worship, to Mr. Naylor. Mr. Naylor, so this fundraising adventure would be at the request of whatever organization that you would be helping out. It wouldn't be like Kona would just show up at soccer or baseball or at the high school without their knowledge.
No, we, through the mayor, we are invited to do fundraising. That's how it works. The schools call us, like Bell River Soccer contacted us initially. And same thing with these other organizations. They call us and then we go.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Who's next? Councillor Bjorkman, go ahead.
Thank you through Mr. Mayor and Mr. Naylor. Thanks for your presentation. I checked out the video, looked at it online. It's very, very interesting and eye-catching mobile. I guess my main question is, so where exactly do you want to go in the town of Essex, and how often? Like, what's your plan for your business?
Well, I mean, we're pretty busy in other municipalities, but we will have another truck coming next year. And we would just like to be able to get out into neighborhoods or into, to park or sports fields, whatever. Now with sports fields, it kind of depends on the organization. But we'd like to be able to operate in parks, sports facilities, and neighborhoods, basically.
Okay, so the model would be, like, am I thinking about the old ice cream truck would be coming down the street and the bells would be ringing and, out would come the kids? Is it that sort of a transient deal, or do you go someplace and set up, if you're invited to a block party or, coming out to a sporting event? How much is you're just driving around the town selling in neighborhoods?
Yeah, the driving around is a small part of what we do, even in other municipalities. Generally speaking, it's like we post things on Facebook to say, here's where we're going to be. And either people have requested that we be there and we just stop for a while. But generally speaking, not doing a lot of driving around. In many cases, it's responding to people who have given us their address and have said, please come to our house. And then other people in the neighborhood end up coming as well. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Garin, you're next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so this application or this delegate's pretty much similar to what we approved for the Essex Ravens, where he wanted to go in the neighborhoods. Kona is asking that he'd like to do that as well, but the majority of what I think they're looking for is a relief to the bylaw, which is only permitting them right now to set up shops per se in commercial, industrial, or institutional zones. So when the events are going down at soccer fields or the ballparks, it's on town property, he's not permitted to. So I think that's the what you're really looking for. Is that correct, Mr. Naylor?
Yeah, we'd like to be able to do that, or we'd like to be able to go to the Heritage Park, you know, if there's something going on there. We just, I mean, people love this stuff, and we would just, we'd like to be able to go where people are and serve them.
Yeah, so further that then, so I still think we need to look at the bylaw and maybe make some changes to it if we're going to continue to have delegates approach us to do this. And now that we've allowed it to Ravens and we may allow it to Kona, I think that will be what's going to happen. I'm not opposed to allowing it on our sports fields and stuff. If some organizations want to invite, I wouldn't want to see just showing up without permission, but on an invite, I think I would be in favor of that for sure.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Vandendon, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, well, at 63, I'm old enough to remember getting a dime from my mom and buying a bar from the Good Humor Man in Scarborough. So they're great memories, and I wish more kids could have memories like that. But on the other hand, there's a reason these were banned. Can someone from administration tell us why we don't have roaming food trucks? Because, well, Councillor Bowman, maybe you were on council when this decision was made, but at some point we decided we didn't want fleets of roaming food trucks. And like if we allow the first one, we add now this one, then of course there's going to be chip trucks, there's going to be cheeseburger trucks, there's going to be sushi trucks, which I have no problem with, but we just have to understand where we're going with this. This is a slippery slope. You know, Mr. Naylor refers to the charitable donations he makes, but let's not lose sight of the fact that this is a business and most businesses make donations. So this is a business. We could end up with a lot of them if we approve this. So when did we ban? Why?
Councillor Bowman, go ahead.
Yes, just a couple of comments, and the first one is, at one time we had trucks coming into town, and some were licensed, some were not. It was pretty hard to tell who had a license and who didn't to do it. If you ask them and they disappeared, you know they didn't. So that was one of the issues we've had. So we basically made it illegal for any of them. So obviously there weren't any more around. In the past few weeks, we've approved one, and now this is a second one. I think we need to look at this bylaw and see how we can sort of handle this on an ongoing basis, because if we're going to allow them, then we have to have some pretty tight control on who's in town and who's not. And I think we need to have another look at. So I think at this time, it's probably best to refer it back to administration to give us some advice on this. I know Mr. Naylor is a great citizen of the town and has done a lot for the town. And I'm sure this operation that he's proposing to come in would be a good asset to us. I think the big thing is that we do it right. So I think I won't make the motion yet, but I think it should be referred back to administration to come up with a plan on this one. So, okay, thank you.
And I agree, Counselor. I think we're this way, the second one, there's going to be more that come forward. And the nice thing about it, these are local residents that's coming forward with these here. Who was next here? Lori, you wanted to say something? Go ahead, Lori.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. However, I do see Councillor Guerin's hand up, so I don't want to take away from that. I would be happy to share some insight after Councillor Guerin speaks.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor Guerin. Go ahead.
I'm having an awful time, sorry, with this unmuting. Thank you, Ms. Chadwick. Yeah, I just wanted to say that they are permitted right now. They're not illegal. They're just only permitted in commercial, industrial, and institutional zones. I think what Kona is asking for is a little bit different than the Ravens in the sense that he's going to be only going on, say, public property or town property on invite. I still would like to see, even on the invite, that town's still involved with it. Make sure that he has his insurance, make sure that he has his licensing, make sure that he has his, the health unit stuff's all up to snuff. So I think the changing of the bylaw is a totally different thing. That's going to have to be another motion, another night. I think we can deal with the Kona application tonight, though, because I have a feeling with no sports going on today, there's probably not going to be a lot of appetite for his services in the next, by the time we get a motion to change the bylaw, he'd probably be done before his next event anyway. So I think we could probably deal with it today.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bondi, did you have something? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for coming, Mr. Naylor. My kids still have the cup that changes colors with the ice, so whenever you're up and running, let us know. We'll come meet you. I think over the winter time, we should look at having our administration start a registry and a permit process so we can hit the ground running next spring, next summer. But I think right now, I mean, I have no problem with it. Wherever you go, you are bringing those smiles, and people right now are really cooped up, and we need these change of sceneries. So I absolutely support issuing you a business license and an application for a transient trader license this season. There's not much left, but we'll regroup and get back to it in the spring and then have a formal process. So thank you for coming to council and asking for permission rather than for forgiveness. Have a good evening.
Thank you. So I'm going to leave it up to council. Was there a motion?
I think Director Chadwick wanted to.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, Lori. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council. Really, it's great. It's a great news, an opportunity for us to be able to be consistent in two of our major bylaws, one being our comprehensive zoning bylaw and the other being our transient vendor bylaw. And so what we're seeing is that there are applications that are coming forward to allow for these transient vendor businesses to operate on institutional property, which could be municipally owned land, such as parks or soccer fields, or even our rights of way, and also churches and community centers. So unfortunately, the two bylaws are not in sync. And so we do recognize that, and it is something that does need to be cleaned up between not only my department in development services under the economic development officer, but also under the clerk's division, under the CAO's office. So those two bylaws, our teams are working hand in hand, and we have noticed that. Tonight, the application is before you to make that decision, but we do see that is a trend, and that is something certainly that council, it seems as if it's resonating and something that council would like to consider, not on an application, not on a case-by-case basis, but rather let's encompass it to allow for these transient vendors to be able to operate, of course, under a license and to obtain all of the agency permits and approvals, but to be able to operate and to be able to not only operate on our commercial lands, but also institutional.
Thank you, Lori. So what's the pleasure of council tonight? Somebody going to make a motion here? Go ahead.
I can read the motion.
Go ahead, read the motion.
Okay, so the motion that we have here is that the public presentation by Eric Naylor, Kona Ice, Windsor, Essex, asking council to consider an exemption for their food truck called Kev Kona Entertainment vehicle to operate as a transient vendor within the town of Essex on properties other than commercial, industrial, and institutionally zoned properties be received and supported, and if council choose to approve the exemption, that the requirements of the transient vendor bylaw and the transient vendor application be otherwise complied with. So we can receive and support.
Yeah, receiving and support. Need a motion there? To receive and support. Councillor Bowman and Councillor Bondi. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Eric, for the presentation, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Bowman?
Yeah, I think it's important that we also recommend back to administration to further look at this for next year. As far how we're going to handle this and come up with some appropriate suggestions for council to consider.
Yeah, we'll put that in the motion.
Sure, if you like.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Go ahead.
Okay, item 8 on the agenda, reports from administration. Item 8.1, Chief Administrative Officer, COVID-19 town responses and updates.
Okay, thank you, Council. Through you, Your Worship, not much to update, different from the last meeting, again, into phase 3. Facilities are the splash pad's open, beach is open, testing is going well. I mean, the test results aren't the greatest, but the testing procedure, at least we're notifying residents of where we sit with that. Day camps, pools. The biggest thing I guess I want to bring forward, I mean, there's a large one coming tonight in the form of a report from Community Services with respect to the arena. So I won't touch on that. The only other thing is we've got a second dry run with our with CFTV with respect to council meetings in session now that we're moving into stage 3. I'll be coming back hopefully the first meeting in September with some options for council and how we want to look at that moving forward to be able to get back in person, and then council can make the decision in September, whether it's no meetings, all meetings, some meetings, just council meetings, and we can go that way. So as far as updates with respect to COVID, that's all I've got tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Item 8.2, Parks and Facilities Report 2020-07 regarding the Essex Sports Center Complex Foundation repair.
I'm so sorry, Ms. Brown, to interrupt, but do we get to question the COVID report at all?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
Okay, so sorry. My questions are more public health a little bit. I did watch the last board meeting of the public health unit on August 20th. And so now that our CAO is here, and I believe our deputy CAO is here, the data that we requested in July, followed by Kingsville, we still haven't really received that data. And now children are going back to school. So it's cause for concern, especially I would say in my ward, because, when they say the cases of positive 19 and under, that could mean daycares, that could mean grade schools, and that could mean high schools. So we still don't really have a good breakdown of the ages. So if something happens, say at Kingsville at the high school age, we're just going to see 19 and under. So that's kind of alarming, right? To see where it's coming from. So that's one of my questions. I did watch the meeting, and I'm just wondering if you, Mr. Mayor, can elaborate on the data that they're giving. There was reference to specific data given to Kingsville and Leamington. I'm not sure if Kingsville and Leamington are given different information than us, but what is everybody's thoughts on the information that's coming from the health unit at this point? Thank you.
I can say to you, Councillor, that the information given to Kingsville is no different than us. And another thing, just to let you know, Councillor, that they will not release this is, how do I put this? Privacy Act. They can't disclose, okay, to a certain area and name where a lot of these COVID cases are coming. There's protection, privacy, the Privacy Act too. okay, does not, they don't, you know, we got in trouble once already by releasing a group that, a group in Leamington, and I'm not gonna say the name, and we got our hands slapped for that one. So we gotta be very careful at the data we put out. They do release how many cases every day, like they did today, the cases that were out, and there's outbreaks in some of these nursing homes. Okay, they do release data every day, but they're not going to break it down and say, look, we have 1 in Harrow, we have 2 in Essex. They're not going to release that information.
Further to you then, Mr. Mayor, if with the ages 19 and under, if everybody's going back to school, like I see the school board, you know, wants more money, and there are concerns. There is anxiety in our communities with parents going, you know, are the cases going to be in the daycares? Are they going to be in the grade schools? Are they going to be in the high schools? With the number 19 and under, that's, I think, what is hard. There's no further breakdown in terms of age groups. It's all, everybody's 19 and under. Meanwhile, 19-year-olds can go out, like drinking, right? So I would like to see, as a counselor with schools in my area, with a border and children going out of school, like even if it says, you know, 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, I don't know. It's just, that's the breakdown I think that we're going to miss having with kids going back to school. Thank you.
Anybody else from council? No.
All right, so item 8.2, Parks and Facilities Report 2020-07 regarding the Essex Center Sports Complex Foundation repairs. That the Parks and Facilities Report 2020 entitled Essex Sports Complex Foundation repairs be received. That council award the request for tenders, slab repairs, and construction at the Essex Center Sports Complex to Vince Farrell Construction in the amount of $329,421, excluding non-refundable HST. That council approves Simcoe Refrigeration to perform all refrigeration work, including but not limited to draining the system, removing and installing all current refrigeration pipes in the repair area in the amount of $175,000, excluding non-refundable HST. That council approves an overall budget for the Essex Center Sports Complex Foundation Repairs Project in the amount of up to $625,000, which includes items number 2 and 3 above, and the consultant costs, the boiler removal and installation for mechanical room, the rubber floor removal, and installation and repair work from damaged underground electrical conduit for the Shaheen rink, and that council approves funding for the Essex Center Sports Complex Foundation Repairs Project in the amount of $625,000 by utilizing $85,000 in approved project CS 20-0018, and another
42.5.
Yeah, the remaining unfunded balance of $540,000 be funded accordingly. 169,259,000 General Arena Reserve, 84,600 Essex Arena Expansion Reserve, and the remaining $286,141 from the Asset Management Lifecycle Reserve.
Any questions on this one? Doug, did you want to speak on this? Go ahead, Doug.
Through you, Mayor. With this project, I think it's important to kind of do a brief update. So in regards to this report, I also have John Olson, the Town of Essex Manager of Parks and Facilities, available, and Will Tate. He's from Haddad Morgan Associates, in case there's additional questions. The report before you tonight is an update to council on the foundation repairs required for the Essex Center Sports Complex, as well as the recommended council approve the 5 recommendations, as read by the Deputy Clerk, which include awarding the contractors to perform the work and allocating funds for the work to be completed. In addition to the report, I'll provide a high-level summary. So in the fall of 2019, town staff started to notice heaving in the back third of the main dressing room hallway, and continued to monitor the issue in 2020. Haddad Morgan Associates were brought in to help determine what was causing the heaving issue, and they recommended that soil testing be completed. A report was submitted to the town in July stating that the heaving issues were being created from high water table, which in cold temperatures was freezing and creating the heaving issue. And Shelley, if you can go to Appendix B. So in the report on Appendix B, the top diagram is a section we've already excavated and a review for the investigation of the issue. The very top, you can see the concrete slab, and below there's 4 large pipes. So 2 of the pipes go to each of the rinks, a to and a from. So you can see all that's normally filled with granular fill. So we're looking at excavating all that and below the pipes. Shelley, if you can go to Appendix D. So while that's coming up, to rectify the situation and avoid similar issues occurring in the future, it is recommended that the floor beginning the mechanical room and along approximately 1/3 of the back portion of the main dressing room hallway and a portion of the Shaheen Ring vomitory be excavated, including all refrigeration lines and add appropriate drainage. So you can see in the red, the back part of the arena's mechanical room goes up the hallway and then out to parts of the Shaheen Rink. So that's all the area that have to excavate and remove the refrigeration lines. Once the town was aware of the issue and the required fix, town staff worked with Haddad Morgan Associates to develop a request for tender to complete the work, and the tender closed this past Wednesday with Vince Farrell Construction Limited submitting the lowest bid. Simcoe Refrigeration, who's a town's refrigeration company and also the company who installed the current refrigeration system and all the lines when the facility was built, was contacted to provide a pricing for them to perform their work removing glycol from the system and then removing and reinstalling all necessary refrigeration lines. Their price is part of the 5 recommendations to perform their work in conjunction with Vince Farrell Construction Limited. To perform the work necessary, the necessary work is estimated it may take up to 50 working days. So the Essex Center Sports Complex will not have ice available to users until sometime in October. The next report on the agenda discusses allocating ice at the Hare Arena during this time. That includes my summary, but if council does have additional questions, like I said, I do have myself, John, and Will Tate that may be able to answer. Thanks.
Any questions from council? Councilor Guerin, go ahead. Go ahead, Councilor Guerin.
Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so this is still waiting on feedback from insurance, whether there's going to be any insurance coverage, correct, Doug?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. The town solicitor clerk and our insurance adjuster, we've contacted them to see if this will be covered under insurance. They did respond back today with some additional questions, so we will respond back to them. So this funding is required if it is not covered through insurance, and we'll let council know either way what that decision is.
Thank you.
Anybody else from council? Councilor Bjorkman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to Director Morrison. Looking at the funding and where we're pulling the funds from, the different reserves, with interest rates as low as they are today, and we're building these healthy reserves and trying to keep things prepared for something happening 2 years from now. I'm kind of concerned with the fact of just taking these funds and spending them there from our reserves. And if something happens in Harrow in 2 years, are we going to have to borrow then because we don't have anything left in our funds? I'm just wondering what the rationale is to not borrow at these low interest rates.
Through the chair, I got my computer updated and obviously it flipped my image. So I've just flipped my 2-in-1 twice and I'm upside down no matter what view I put it on. So through the chair.
You look a little different there, Jeff.
Sitting on the ceiling. Again. We did the analytics surrounding the funding for this, and I know I sound like broken record through budget and everything, but through the decisions of council as it pertains to the asset management life cycle reserve and the allocation of funds to that, it put us in a position where we can absorb situations like this. We don't like to, but the funding is there to absorb things like this when they pop up. So I was looking at the life cycle reserve earlier today, and based on the 2020 forecast for year ending 2020, we're going to be sitting around 6.3 million, and 2024 we'll be sitting around $9 million in that reserve, assuming spending as usual in our capital budget between $6 and $10 million. So it put us in a position to absorb situations like this. And looking at it with the impacts of COVID, we're earning 0.92% in our reserve fund right now for interest. And the cost to borrow, although it is at a record low through Infrastructure Ontario at 1.5%, still outweighs the amount that we're earning. So the decision to fund it through the life cycle reserve made the most sense at the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else for the report, on the report? Councillor Bondi, did you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report, Mr. Sweet, and thank you for coming, Mr. Olson. It's of all years for this to happen. I know we don't want this to happen, but it's kind of the best year for it to happen because of us slowing down in terms of ice. So wondering if we can investigate the naming rights again. You know, I've seen facilities out there do naming rights, even though their facility is older. You know, they find, I don't know, whether it's Domino's Pizza, and we still don't have a name on this arena. So I don't know if it's worth it to investigate that, but it could save our taxpayers $100,000 and give some name recognition to a local company if we decided to go with the naming rights option. So I would like to investigate that again. I know we tried before and we were unsuccessful, but I'm just throwing it out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vandendolen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, through you, man, you know, the armchair experts are just going to have a field day with this. I could just imagine what they're going to be saying in the coffee shops for the next 3 months as they discuss this. And, you know, and I don't blame them. Taxpayers hate to see this kind of thing, but these are really complex buildings and complex systems. But having said that, how the heck can Canadian contractors screw up building a hockey rink? How can they not know how freezing lines are going to behave on wet ground? This baffles me. I know we can't go backwards. There's no blame to be laid here. We just have to bite this bullet. But what I do want to say is thank you to the staff, the arena staff who noticed this, who had their eyes peeled, who alerted their superiors. Taxpayers at least know that the people, you know, at the bottom cleaning the floors are noticing things and pointing out to taxpayers or protecting our interests by telling us what's going on with the buildings that they're entrusted with looking after. So I just want to thank them and the staff and Mr. Sweet for bringing it this far for us. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I think we're going to need a motion to receive the report. Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Guerin, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Okay, item 8.3, Community Services Report 2020-04 regarding the reopening of Town of Essex indoor recreation facilities. A Community Services Report 2020-04 entitled Reopening of the Town of Essex Indoor Recreation Facilities, dated August 24, 2020, and that Council approves the opening of the Harrow Arena, McGregor Community Center, Colchester Community Center, Maydale Community Center, and the Essex Center Sports Complex Shaheen Room as of Tuesday, September 8th, as per the province's Stage 3 reopening planning guidelines, and that Council concurs with administration following the town's ice allocation policy when allocating ice at the Harrow Arena while repairs occur at the Essex Center Sports Complex.
Any questions on this one to Doug? Doug, did you want to speak on this one too? Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I know it's a long meeting, but just want to go over a few things with council. So on August 12th, the Windsor-Essex County region was able to move into Stage 3 of the province reopening plan. And part of this plan was to open up indoor recreation facilities. It stated only 50 people were allowed in the facilities, including multi-facilities. Recently, the province has amended that regulation and now allows 50 people for each facility within that complex. So I'll use Essex Center Sports Complex. We can now have 50 people in the Libra rink, 50 in the Shaheen rink, and 50 in the Shaheen room. So that was just recently happened. Town staff have worked to prepare its arenas and community centers to reopen. The public ensuring the town follows the province Stage 3 guidelines. And administration is recommending council approve the town's indoor facilities reopen as of Tuesday, September 8th for rentals and limited programming. Part of the reopening will require all seasonal rentals, ice and rooms to provide the town with a safe return plan. That way we have something on site and how they're going to handle the provincial guidelines. In addition, in consultation with our town solicitor, clerk, and insurance broker, we have added a clause to all our rental agreements in regards to using our facilities in programs during the COVID times. Unfortunately, with the repairs at the Essex Center complex, this facility will not be able to open to the public September 8th. So administration is recommending the town follow the ice allocation policy to book ice at the Harrow Arena and look at allocating ice on a month-to-month basis until the Essex Center Sports Complex is back open and normal ice allocations will be implemented. Based on the ice allocation policy, ice preference would go to all youth organizations that previously used Town of Essex facilities first and then offered to the adult groups after that. Youth organizations had until last Friday to submit their ice request for the Harrow Arena. Our administration is currently reviewing all submissions this week and will do September ice allocation for the Harrow Arena. For reopening of the Harrow Arena, administration has been in contact with other surrounding municipalities, and to open administration will be implementing similar approaches for ice rentals that neighboring municipalities are utilizing. And Shelley, you can put the PDF on the screen. Anyone that enters the facility must constantly wear a mask until their helmet is put on or they're going onto the ice. Participants are to come dressed to the rink other than skates, helmets, etc. Dressing rooms are available to put skates on only. Showers will not be available and the water has been turned off for the showers. No outside food or drink is allowed into the building. Water fountains will be shut off, but bottle refill stations can be used, and it is recommended each participant bring their own labeled water bottle. Vending machines are to have product removed. Our staff will be unlocking doors and monitoring entry and exit points and the number in the building, disinfecting high touch points, dressing room areas, benches, and spectator areas between rentals. And our staff must also wear a mask while in the public areas. So I just want to go over the map you see in front of you. So when Harrow Arena opens on September 8th, if approved by council, where it shows enter, that will be pre-screened by all the organizations. So there's a tent there that will be set up prior to entering the building. We ask that people come 20 minutes prior to their rental to be pre-screened. Once in, they go to number 1, which they look on the screen for the dressing room assignment. From there, number 2, if you're 18 or under, we're recommending no spectators, but if you're 18 and under, we'll allow one parent or guardian. They may go to where it's designated standing area only, and we have the foot markings down, or they could go to the bleachers. We're going to allocate just rows 1 to 4, again, with spaces marked where people can sit, keeping in mind social distancing. Players then, once they know the dressing rooms, will go down the hallway and they'll go into one of the 6 dressing rooms. If you're using dressing room 1 to 3, you enter and exit the ice by the east entrance marked with an E. If you're in dressing room 4 or 6, you'll enter using the west entrance. Once your rental's done, you go back to your dressing room and then you leave through the north exit, which is by the tennis courts. So that's a process a lot of the other municipalities are using as well. So we're looking to start that. It's a little easier for us at the Harrow Arena just because it is a single facility. But I wanted council to be aware of what the process we're going to start when we do reopen. And just any questions if council has any, Mayor.
Thank you, Doug, for the report. Any questions, Councillor Verbeek? You have a question?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you, thanks, Mr. Sweet. Just curious about, our seasonal rentals. Are most of ours from the past showing interest in returning? Are we going to run into trouble trying to, facilitate with 1 rink now as opposed to 3? So I guess my question is, are most of them showing interest in returning? And are we going to be able to accommodate?
Mr. Mayor. Most of the organizations, youth organizations, reached out to their membership a while ago, and their numbers are down. With this, with the being in stage 3, there's still a lot of requirements. You can only have certain play that has no contact. Games are very limited. You can't have spectators, right? If you can only have 50 in a facility with 2 teams, that takes up a lot of your numbers. A lot of the adult groups have no interest, or they usually start in October anyways. So there may be a delay of a couple of weeks. I can tell you Essex Minor Hockey, Erie North Shore Hockey, they're holding off with their, I'm going to call it the House League Interlock programs to start. And some of only the rep teams will practice. And with that, we'll be able to accommodate them. Erie North Shore works also with the Kingsville community. So they're going to use some of the ice at Kingsville and some with us. Although they have committed, once we're back up, they will be using the ice they've had in the past with us. So yes, it will be an impact, but as Councillor Bonnie mentioned previously, with the current guidelines, it's really limiting what activities can happen anyways in terms of games. So it is, if we can get back up and running and ready by November with both facilities, we'll be able to accommodate everybody at the worst case.
Thank you, Doug. Any other questions? Thanks for the report, Doug. I will need a motion to receive that report. Councillor Bowman and Councillor Bjorkman, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Doug.
Item 8.4, Economic Development Report 2020-11 regarding the building report and development overview, July 2020, and that is for receipt.
Need a motion to receipt. Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Verbeek, any questions? Councillor Bjorkman, go ahead.
Just a quick comment, just to let our residents know. January to July 2019 was $25 million in construction costs. This year, same time period, is $54 million. So there's a lot happening in the town of Essex, and it's really a good news with all the COVID and the doom and gloom that we hear. That's a tremendous sign of how our town is responding. So that's just a great report.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with what you're saying, Councillor, and it's still going strong. Councillor Van Dolen, you had something? Go ahead.
No, I'm mistaken. It's another item. I'll bring it up then. Thanks.
Okay. Did I have a motion?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All in favor of this report? It's carried. Thank you.
Item 8.5, Planning Report 2020-10 regarding the TELUS Communications Tower relocation request. That planning report, TELUS Communications Tower relocation request be received, and that bylaw 1943 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Corporation of the Town of Essex and TELUS Communications be read a first, second, and third, and finally passed on August 24, 2020.
Good, thank you. Need a motion on this one? Motion, please. Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Bowman. Any questions on this one? Councillor Van Dolen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Through you, well, I guess now we have our answer as to why the expansion at Atlas Tube was held up. I guess they were waiting for this thing to move. They couldn't budget. I'm just surmising here because this was in the works for years and then it suddenly stopped. And now that this is being moved, it seems like that's going ahead. That's great. My question to administration is, with so many potential internet providers circling the town and wanting to expand what they do around here, is there any way that we can reserve one spot on the new tower for a small provider who might need that location to help serve that part of Essex and Ward 3? Because from I follow the telecommunications industry fairly closely, especially with the towers, and I know that TELUS Rogers Bell tends to keep competitors off the towers that they have, and they've done it in the past. They managed to what's become Freedom Mobile was held back for years by the fact that TELUS Rogers Bell wouldn't let them share towers. So if we're allowing this company to use this prime location on public land, can we, this may be difficult at this late moment, can we reserve one spot for one of the smaller local players who might need a good tower location to help expand broadband internet in the town?
Chris, can you answer that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't. It's a great question. I think, and unfortunately, Rob, who's been working on this file, is off tonight. Yeah, and I think it's an important question. I think it needs to be answered. So, I would look to, I know there was some time constraints in there, but I would look to potentially table this then until you get an answer to that question and bring it back at the meeting in September. Unless, I don't believe there's any issues with that, tabling it right now. I believe, the the next 2 weeks would be okay, but I definitely think that's an important question to be answered.
Okay, thank you.
I asked the question knowing full well that there's a, if they want first, second, third reading tonight, that means there's a severe time constraint, and I don't want to screw this up. I mean, the companies in the paperwork basically threatened that there could be a service interruption to current customers if they don't get this location secured quickly. I mean, I read all of that stuff. It's heavy duty. I don't want to screw up this deal or cause those problems, but I'm just aware of the behavior of these big companies to small local providers, and I would hate to see us throw away an opportunity to perhaps piggyback and serve our citizens a little bit better. So if this causes too severe a legal problem, anyway, thanks.
Chris, further? Okay, go ahead, Chris, and then we have Lori.
Yeah, just diving into the agreements, there are covenants of the landlord with respect to third-party equipment, and just quickly looking over that now, the landlord may at any time grant rights to third parties to install other or additional telecommunications transmission equipment on the premises, provided that the operation of such other or additional equipment does not interfere with the operation of the equipment or equipment space. It says the landlord has to provide TELUS 60 days, and TELUS shall thereafter work with the installer and the operator of the new equipment to ensure the proposed new installation does not interfere. So I think there are provisions with that agreement. Maybe Director Chadwick can speak a little more eloquently than I can on that, but I believe it might be in the agreement, Councillor Vanderdoorn.
Go ahead, Lori.
I wish that's what I was going to speak about. Unfortunately, it isn't. I don't know the terms of the agreement in respect specifically to whether or not other providers can, operate in tandem underneath or above TELUS. What I can speak to is the schedule. So the schedule is that for November 1st, the term of the agreement shall be in effect. What this does is that it provides us with a window for consultation in accordance to our regulations. What this means is that a certain radius surrounding the property is required to receive notice of this. And although it's not a notice for appeal purposes, but it is notice for information purposes. The great news is that the town of Essex and TELUS are the only operators or the only addresses within this radius. So the information is going solely to ourselves, but we do have to abide by those guidelines and the regulations to issue those notices, which is why we built ourselves in that September and a little bit of October wiggle room.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a comment on behalf of Mr. Auger. And that is, while the risk may be low, council should be advised that if they agree to sign now and the public comment somehow lead to council wanting to revisit and revoke the lease agreement, the town may potentially be subject to potential legal action from TELUS. So that is regarding the, as Ms. Chadwick alluded to, the that kind of appeal period. He said, perhaps Mr. Watson could provide more information, although I don't know if he's here tonight, but the public can only comment. They really have no powers of appeal.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's not an appeal period, but rather an information period.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we had the motion. We had the motion on, go ahead, Councillor Vanderdoorn.
Maybe it's best just to get this on the record that I did read the part, Mr. Nepsey, about where they say the third-party equipment can be added, blah, blah, blah. But in practice, in the past, what they say is, sorry, our tower is full. And by that way, they are able to block out competitors. And they especially do this, the big three, to anybody smaller and more nimble, maybe local providers who might be able to steal some of their business. So maybe we should just get that on the record that we're aware of this behavior in case they try to pull this later. I don't want to open this up to any legal action. Maybe we should pass it tonight. Now that I've put that on the record and say we know this trick, and let's hope that they don't pull it if we need some more access, that they don't pull this on any of our local providers. Would that work?
That would work, wouldn't it, Chris? Yeah. Okay. So we had Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along the lines of internet, when is it possible for council to have a half an hour or an hour meeting to discuss internet issues? Like communicate what the rest of council's doing, get us all on the same page, because I don't feel like we are on the same page. I know as certain council members have alluded to, they've been working on this and town staff are working on this, and our economic development officer did send out an email this week, but I really think we should have a public debate about this, because at the May 19th council meeting, we discussed it. And I believe it was Councillor Bjorkman who suggested we have a 1 hour meeting, whether it be partly in camera and partly public, but we still haven't closed that loop with our residents. So I'm just asking through you, Mr. Mayor, back to our CAO, when we can have that public discussion on internet as part of our strategic plan. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, Councillor Bondi, just to inform council that Deputy Mayor Malash and myself and Nelson sat down and we had conversations with a lot of the providers, Cogeco, Wave Direct, Bell. What was the other ones, Deputy Mayor? Do you recall? There was 4 or 5 of them. But anyways, we are in communication right now. We're waiting for answers to see if they could provide and where they can provide services. So that's what we're waiting for right now, Councillor. And that meeting was just 2 weeks ago. So just give you an update. Who? Lori, go ahead, Lori.
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you to Councillor Bondi. Yep, that's exactly what's happening. We are working behind the scenes and meeting with these internet service providers. Where we're at currently through our Economic Development Division is obtaining all of the information, and we have prepared a report, and that report is currently being reviewed internally before we bring it to council in the form of a special meeting or an agenda item. So right now it's that step-by-step. We'd like to prepare the information to council, showcase in the form of a presentation with some maps, and to indicate really what we've learned from these one-on meetings with those internet service providers. So it's coming.
Thank you, Lori. Any other questions? Okay, so we had a motion?
Yes.
We had a motion. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Okay, item 8.6, planning report 2020-16 regarding red line revisions and street closing and opening requests. For Dalabana Construction, east side of Queen Street, north of Colio Drive in Ward 4. That the planning report be entitled Red Line Revisions and Street Closing and Opening Requests prepared by Rita Jabor, Manager of Planning Services, be received. That bylaw 1936, being a bylaw to close and convey a public right-of-way, be read first, second, a third, and finally passed on August 24, 2020, and that bylaw 1935, being a bylaw to provide that part lot control shall not apply to certain lands within registered plan 12M 558 in Harrow, be read at first, second, third, and finally passed on August 24, 2020. Good.
Lori, did you want to speak on this?
Yeah, I would love to. What a great news report. And just to give you a flavor, everybody, of what's happening in Harrow Center. Let's see, the developer, when a developer requests an amendment to a previously approved plan of subdivision, that planning application is called a red line revision. So I did want to clear that up. In these instances, council's endorsement is required before we send the application to the county planner. That county planner is the decision-making authority in this case where there's a red line amendment to a plan of subdivision. In this instance, the applicant is requesting to amend the previously approved Dalabana plan of subdivision in Harrow Center, just north of Colio Winery, to accommodate a few things. The first thing is a larger stormwater management pond to enable the guidelines, the most up-to-date guidelines as possible, and rather to meet those guidelines, to relocate the stormwater management pond and the neighborhood park, and to also realign the interior roads and residential lots as a result of this relocation and bigger pond. The proposed red line will also require county approval for something called part lot control exemption, which allows for the development of semi-detached and townhome dwellings. All in all, this phase of the development will result in a total of 29 residential units, with construction of the infrastructure anticipated to begin this fall. Rita Jabour, our Manager of Planning Services, is on hand tonight. Should council have specific questions related to the report, we hope that it does bring that good news to you, and we hope to see this move forward to the county for final approval.
Thank you, Lori. That's just phase one, eh? That there, I believe there's 215 homes going in there total? It's a five.
For now, it is phase one. That second phase, we're not exactly sure how many units because they are currently in blocks. We can speculate, but it all depends on what the developer wants to do with that second phase in terms of how many units, whether they're singles or semis or towns.
Right. This is good news. Like, we've been waiting for this now for 2 or 3 years. So good news. Any questions? Okay, I need a motion. You're going to make you making a motion? I can't.
No, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that this project has been on the books for 13 years, and it appears that legally we can change the rules that were issued under previous bylaws years ago. And in fact, that we're bound by that legally. I just want to point that out to council. We were discussing this earlier tonight. People seem to think that we couldn't change anything, but here, in fact, we are being obligated to change something because of updated bylaws, and we need a larger storage, water storage pond. So I want to point that out. But I hope that this news is put out there far and wide that this potentially very large subdivision will be built in the town of Essex. It can only do us good. I really hope this thing goes ahead, even if it's only just 30 to start. Once those first 30 are in, there's going to be a lot of people to follow, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. I need a motion to receive the report, please. Councillor Van Andola and Councillor Bjorkman, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Item 8.7, Planning Report 2020-17, regarding the reduction and release of securities for Phase 5 of the Kimball Estates development in Ward 1, that Planning Report 2020-17 be received, that the securities for the end of the maintenance period for Phase 5 of the Kimball Estates development be reduced to $8,483.48, and that the maintenance securities in the amount of $259,828.25 for the completion of civil construction work and street lighting be returned to the developer, Kimball Estates.
I need a mover for this one, please. Deputy Mayor Milosh and Councillor Van Andel. All in favor? This is pretty well straightforward. It's carried. Thank you.
Item 8.8, Planning Report 2020-19, regarding the site plan control approval for 178 County Road 50 East in Colchester South, Ward 3, that the report be received, and that bylaw 1941 being a bylaw to enter into a site plan control agreement between the Corporation of the Town of Essex and Magnolia Ranch Incorporated be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on August 24th, 2020.
Thank you. Lori, you wanted to speak on this one first? Lori, did you want to speak on this
and
one?
Again, thank you. Another great news story that I'd love to share a little bit with council about. Magnolia Ranch is one of our, I'd say, hidden gems in the town of Essex. So this report is an exciting opportunity for us to share with you what's going on the site and what the intentions are for the applicants. So the purpose of the report is to seek your support in entering into a site plan control agreement to establish a microbrewery in the existing accessory structures located at Magnolia Ranch Bed and Breakfast. The use is permitted by right in combination with the existing bed and breakfast and will be used to service on-site events only, therefore not open to the public for retail sales. As part of this project, the applicant is also proposing to install a temporary tent for event space as well as portable washroom facilities. This phase is an exciting first step for the applicant's long-term vision for the site, which we're happy to share with you, includes construction of a new permanent brewery with event space and separate parking area. However, down the road, when the applicants are ready to develop this second phase, they will be subject to site plan control at that time. Again, Rita's here on hand should council have specific questions. I'm happy to also report that all three of our divisions in development services have been working very closely on this project. Of course, cross-disciplinary as well with infrastructure as well as other departments. our Economic Development Officer, our Manager of Planning Services, and our Chief Building Official have been working, handing that baton off in order to get this project to where we are today. It has been a very long process in terms of getting this in a two-step approach so that we could get that permission for the on-site brewery in the accessory structures.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions? I need a motion to receive this report then. Councillor Verbeek and Councillor Van Dolen, all in favor? Carried. It's great news, Lori. This is good for us. Yep, thank you.
Oh, are they looking for questions?
Did you have questions? We already passed the motion.
Yes, and
Yeah, I know, but
you said the report was to receive, and my motion was to receive and support the recommendation by staff for this to enter into the site plan agreement for sure. We know how hard it is to attract business. So let's support this great business in their endeavor to expand.
Yeah,
thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
Has to be more than receiving.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that I think a lot, through you, Mr. Mayor, that a lot more should be made of this development, because this is like a dream development for a small town. I mean, it's terrific. We have all these wineries, but as a beer lover myself, this is draft beer. This is what I like, and it just broadens the tourism appeal of that region. Even if they're not serving anything yet, the long-term vision of this place is really fantastic. I'm excited about it. I've toured that building, and I think locals should know what a spectacular bed and breakfast locale it is. Those rooms will blow your mind. It's like I have been able to stay in some very high-end hotels, and this is like a high-end hotel. If you've got people coming to visit, you should send them to that bed and breakfast, among several others in the region. But I hope that we're able to facilitate this development as quickly as they want to carry it forward, because I think it's going to be terrific for the town. Thank you.
Well, you need some of that draft beer, Councillor. Go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Verbeek, to clarify, the motion was to receive the report and to approve the bylaw to enter into a site plan control agreement.
Yeah.
Just to clarify for you.
And we had a seconder.
We did, yes, and that is carried.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so agenda item 8.9, drainage report 2020-07 for the appointment of an engineer under section 76 of the Drainage Act to provide updated cost sharing for the Brooks Drain, that the report be received, and that the council appoints Root Engineering Incorporated under section 76 of the Drainage Act to provide cost sharing for the future culvert replacements for the Brooks Drain.
Mover, please. Mover on this one, Deputy Mayor Malage and Councillor Bjorkman. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 8.10, drainage report 2020-08 for the appointment of an engineer under section 78 of the Drainage Act to review the brush drain, that the report be received, and that council appoints Root Engineering Incorporated under section 78 of the Drainage Act to review the brush drain.
Mover, please, on this report. Councillor Van Dolen and Deputy Mayor Malage. All in favor? It's carried.
Item 8.11, drainage report 2020-09 regarding the appointment of an engineer under section 78 of the Drainage Act to install a new culvert in the Grave Line Drain, that the report be received, and that council appoint Root Engineering Incorporated under section 78 of the Drainage Act to install a new culvert in the Grave Line Drain.
Have a mover on this one, please. Councillor Van Dolen and Councillor Bowman. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Item 8.12, Development Services Report 2020-02 regarding the results of the Development Standards Manual Request for Proposal, that the report be received, and that council awards the consulting services contract for the Development Standards Manual to Dillon Consulting Limited in the amount of $79,576.32, including non-refundable HST, and that council approves the reallocation of $9,576.30 from capital project PZ-20-0002 to PZ-19-007.
Lori, did you want to speak on this one?
Sure, don't mind if I do. This one is it's been a long time coming, and we're very excited to finally get here. In summary, a development standards manual is both a business process manual and a technical document that lays out specifications intended to provide clarity for developers, contractors, engineers, and really to help when submitting development plans and construction documents to the town of Essex to keep things smooth, to keep things consistent, and to keep things in line with the latest legislation, as well as guidelines and in terms of really our requirements within the town of Essex. So the RFP for consultant services was posted this spring and closed in June. 2 proposals were received and evaluated according to our procurement bylaw and policy, which resulted in Dillon scoring the highest. We are seeking council support in awarding the project in that amount, as Ms. Brown indicated, which is just over $9,000 higher than the council approved project budget. But we wanted to share with you that the budget originally that council approved in 2020 as a part of the 2020 capital budget was estimated in 2017, but has been since rolled over year after year. So a 2020 estimate for these consulting services in the amount of approximately 80 grand is considered reasonable. So for this, that 9,576 and 32 can be funded within development services existing capital budget by simply transferring from one project to another, because that 5-year OP project is expected to be phased in both 2020 and 2021. So therefore that 9,000 can be put back in if need be as a part of 2021's budget deliberations.
Thank you, Laura. So I need a motion to receive Councillor Bondi. And did you have a question, Councillor Bondi? Go ahead.
I can make the motion to receive the report and then ask a question after if you want.
No, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. So my question through you, Mr. Mayor, is to Ms. Chadwick. On March 18th, 2019, Council gave direction for a marketing planning consultant be retained to undertake a local comprehensive review on the adequacy of our residential and employment lands. Is this report?
No, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bondi. No, that is a part of the county. So read it to me again. Sorry, I don't have that. Comprehensive review of Councillor Bondi.
Yeah, sorry, marketing planning consultant be retained to undertake a local comprehensive review on the adequacy of our residential and employment land allocations within the planning period to 2031.
So that's a part of the OP review. So that project is a part of the OP review, is under planning, and is going to be initiated this year. However, the project will require a technical project in terms of schedule as well as finance. So our budget was deliberately split so that council was only going to approve phase 1 of that 5-year OP review and finish off that project in 2021. So taking that $9,000 out in order to help fund the rest of this development standards manual will not greatly impact the 5-year OP review project, because here we are in almost September. We have yet to even initiate the project, so we will be able to roll over and, if required, ask council for that additional $9,000 back.
Thank you, Lori. And Councillor Bondi, you were going to make the motion? Okay, to accept the report.
Yes.
I need a seconder. Councillor Bowman, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. No, you.
Okay, so we'll go to item number 10, County Council update.
What, do we have anything? No, we didn't have much. No.
Okay, item 11 on the agenda, correspondence. 11.1, correspondence to be received. That correspondence listed in agenda item 11.1 be received and were indicated to further share such information with the community using suitable methods of communication.
Need a mover, please? Councillor Guerin and Councillor Bjorkman. Any questions on this? All in favor? It's carried.
Agenda item 11.2, correspondence to be considered for receipt and support. Item 11.2.1, County of Essex, regarding the support for federal assistance for people with disabilities re-COVID-19 pandemic, that the correspondence from the county dated July 20th, supporting the request from the Essex County Accessibility Advisory Committee to the federal government to provide additional funding for certified holders of the disability tax credit to assist with the added financial burden during the COVID-19 pandemic be received and or received and supported, and that if council chooses to support the resolution, a letter of support be sent to the Prime Minister, the Minister of Employment, Workplace Development and Disability Inclusion, and a copy of the letter be sent to the ECAAC.
Need a mover on this one? Councillor Verbeek and a seconder, Councillor Bjorkman. Any questions?
Are we receiving and supporting?
Are we receiving and supporting? Okay, all in favor? It's carried.
Item 11.2.2, Essex Region Conservation, regarding the Essex Region Source Protection Committee, that the correspondence from IRCA dated July 31st introducing municipal candidates prior to their appointment to the Source Protection Committee be received or received and supported, that if council chooses to endorse the following individual's appointment to the Essex Region Source Protection Committee, that a letter of support be sent to the Essex Region Source Property Committee prior to August 31st, 2020.
Get a mover, please, on this one. Deputy Mayor Malash and a seconder.
Support. Receive and support.
Okay, receive and support. Seconder is Councillor Bowman. Any questions? All in favor? Carried.
Item 11.2.3, Greater Essex County District School Board, regarding the request for support for additional funding from the province for health and safety standards in schools. That the correspondence dated August 14, 2020, asking council to consider supporting their efforts to have the Ministry of Education through the provincial government provide a substantial increase in funding for additional health and safety standards in the schools to prevent the spread of COVID-19 virus be received and supported, and that if council chooses to support the request, a letter of support be sent to the Ministry of Education and a copy of the letter be sent to the school board.
Mover on this one, please. Receive and support.
And support.
Okay, and Councillor Verbeek, second. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Item 11.2.4, City of Elliott Lake, regarding the resolution supporting private member bill by Majid Johari, M36 Emancipation Day, that the correspondence regarding the private member bill that August 1st of every year be designated as Emancipation Day in Canada, recognizing the heritage of Canada's peoples of African descent and the contributions they have made and continue to make to Canada, be received and supported, and if council chooses to support the private member bill, that a letter of support be sent to Majid Johari, MP Richmond Hill, and Chris Lewis, MP Essex, and a copy of the letter be sent to the City of Elliott Lake.
Move over, please. Councillor Bondi and support and receive. Okay, and Deputy Mayor Malash, all in favor? Carried. We didn't do this.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question to this item, please.
Where's the? Oh, you didn't either. Yeah, I'll be sure.
What can our council, or do I have to do a notice of motion if I would like us in the town of Essex to declare August 1st Emancipation Day as well?
Yeah, I think you would.
Okay.
Yeah, you would.
Okay.
Okay. If
Go
I
ahead.
may, Mr. Mayor, we jumped through 11 pretty fast there. I just wanted to point out 11.1.2 that our CAO had a long-term recognition award provided to him, and we should recognize that and congratulate him on 10 years from the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators.
Yes, I was going, Councillor Bjorkman, I was going to do that in about 2 minutes here. I have it right here. I have something here for him.
It was on the agenda.
I know, and we jumped right through it. But I will address it right at the end here. Okay, and I'll do it right now. for Chris Nepsy for his recognition for service in municipal manager. Tonight, I'd like to congratulate Chris on his recent recognition for 10 years municipal service by the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators. The Long Service Recognition Awards program celebrates administrators like Chris who are dedicated to public service and municipal management. Chris joined us as a Director of Infrastructure and Development Services back in 2008. And I'll tell you, it's been a pleasure to see him grow in his role as a Deputy CAO, and now he's our Chief Administrative Officer. And I'll tell you, he works his hind off. So on behalf of council, I'd like to congratulate Chris on this milestone. He's been a great pleasure to work with. And I'll tell you, to sit down with him and to share the information that he gives us, I really thank him a lot for his work, and I'm sure council will back me up on that too. Thank you, Chris, for your dedicated work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so item number 12, committee meeting minutes, that the minutes listed in agenda item 12 be received and were indicated to further share such information with community using suitable methods of communication.
Mover on the committee minutes, Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Verbeek. All in favor? Carried.
Item 13.1. I'm not missing anything. Sorry, I don't want to miss anything again. Sorry,
No.
Chris.
just throw something at us if we miss something.
I'm a little nervous tonight, so sorry about that. Item
been long.
13.1, June 2020 bank payments report, that the bank payments report, including the June check register, check number 51491 to 51587, inclusive in the amount of $3,750,810.98. The pre-authorized payments for the month of June of $320,580.50, and the payroll for June 2020 in the amount of $406,455.78 be ratified as submitted.
Mover, please. Deputy Mayor Malage and Councillor Guerin. All in favor? It's carried. No. No new business? Any new business? Okay, thank you.
Item 15, notices of motion. Item 15.1, the following notices of motion were brought forward at the August 4th, 2020 regular council meeting and are brought forward this evening for council's consideration. Item 15.1.1, Councillor Bondi regarding councillor report tracker.
Go ahead, no, we need a seconder, right?
Yeah.
Need a seconder for Councillor Bondi's? Councillor Guerin. Go ahead, Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you, just something that I think would help both council and administration to have it. It doesn't have to be very complicated, just an Excel type spreadsheet that says, you know, we asked for, or council is given direction to ask for this at such and such date, and it's going to come back. And I understand we ask for a lot, and I understand we have a lot of reports on the go. Just because we have a report tracker doesn't mean our reports have to get done right away. But it's something so that we know, okay, we can tell the residents it's on paper, right? We know where it is. And maybe our administration has something in the works, but right now I don't really know whose job it is to track reports. So I've gone and I've found some reports that we've that have fallen through the cracks, and just kind of I've made a sheet of them and put them on there so that we know. And I also thank council for a tool of us as a collective body. When we ask for reports, I think it's up to us to kind of say, okay, what is a priority? And does this report tie back into our strategic plan? Because, you know, there's 8 members on council. We all have our own political agendas and ideas and opinions of what we think we should be doing. But if we ask for a report and it's something urgent, say it's, I don't know, a drainage item that we had tonight, we want it back soon. So we know that that's urgent. If we ask for a report about, like Councillor Bjorkman, January this year, we asked for a report on how to reduce plastics in our facilities. Well, That one's a little bit more complicated. It's going to take a little bit more time, so it's a little less urgent. But I think we as a council are kind of doing a poor job in terms of directing our administration on what the priorities are. I would actually like to see us have a little mini strategic planning session with each other and say, okay, this strategic plan is big. It's this much. Can we narrow it down to this much? We're 2 years into our term. We're not going to accomplish everything, but I just want to see what the rest of council is thinking in terms of reports, tracking, strategic plan, expectations, administrative workload. You know, every time we ask for a report, we have to keep in mind that this is taxpayer dollars when we're asking for reports. So if we say, you know, we want to move our office, or we want to move a couch from A to B, like that takes time and energy. So I think we need to start channeling those energies in more concise directions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council on this request? Councillor Bjorkman, you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I go the other way on this kind of a list. I believe this is the CAO's responsibility to determine priorities for his staff. We, as council, in our strategic planning, give our administration, what we give our CAO, what it is we're after. Here's what we are about. This is what we want to see happen. Then we have meetings, different things through the strategic plan. Hopefully most things we ask for are related to the strategic plan. And it's up to the CAO to prioritize those for his staff, figure out where we've got the money for things, what's going to get us the most bang for our buck, those sorts of things. Well, pretty soon another one comes along and bumps somebody down the list. And I kind of see this as going the same route as our roads list went for a while, is you kind of set up the roads. We all have our favorite road that needs to get done, and it keeps getting bumped down or it gets moved. And, you know, we wonder, well, how come, you know, Steve just got 3 of his reports done and I didn't get, you know, 2 of mine. I just see I don't think it's for us to direct in that sense. We need to keep track of. If I've got a report that I've asked for, that I've pushed for and council agreed, then I will call and say, how's my report coming along? Where are we with this? And I think that's more our responsibility to follow up with our CAO if we're looking for something to come back to us. But as far as creating that list, it gets political. I can see issues. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we need that. We need to keep our eye on the ball, and the things that we're interested in, call and find out where those things are. And if you've got a resident who's wondering, you know, where have we gotten so far with this, make the call and ask. But as far as a published list, I would disagree with that.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. I agree with what you're saying. I do the same thing. If I need to know something on a report, I'll call in and talk to Chris, our CAO, directly. So I agree with that. Who was next? There was somebody else. Deputy Mayor Meloche, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to throw my comments in, Mr. Mayor, about this as well. I like the idea of a report tracker, and the idea is that it's so easy to lose track of some reports because sometimes there's a long length of time, or administration's dependent on to get us an answer. They're dependent on another body, for instance, the county, or maybe the health unit, or it could be the city of Windsor, or some other body that has to get back to them before they can give us an answer. And it's just nice to have a report tracker, so that if someone were responsible for updating where we're at with it, or when we expect to have, you know, and even for administration, to look at it and say, okay, we've got these outstanding projects. I know that, for instance, and I do call Mr. Nepsy on not a regular basis about some of these projects that I've asked about, but I'd kind of like to know where they're at, and without having to always be bugging him about where the project is at. And I know he's going to say, you're not bugging me, but I am, because he's an important person. He's got a lot to do in a day, and I hate to take his time away. But it just gives all of us, because even though, let's say, Councillor Bowman or Councillor Bjorkman have asked for a specific project, or they're the ones that were the key principle in making the motion, I may be interested in it as well. And do we want all 8 councillors calling Mr. Nepsey to ask about it because it's something that's of interest to everybody that's on council? This way we've got a report tracker that tells us, okay, we're going to hear about this soon. This is when they're going to come back and report on it. And it's not important that we know today when they're going to come back and report on it, but we can leave it in their hands, administration, and say, hey, you know, we're going to see it in the report tracker in the next couple of weeks as to when they kind of estimate when they're going to come back to us on it. And if that date changes, that date changes, but at least we've got an idea of when that project or idea is going to come back. I'll give you a, for instance, I know that we've got a number of months ago, I asked about the intersections at Erie and King and Harrow, and I asked about the, we talked about the Arner, I think, too, on that one, and County Road 8, and I think it was maybe County Road 8 and Maidstone Avenue in Essex. I can't, it's been so long now, I'm having a hard time remembering which intersection it was, but it was a number of intersections. We were going to get to the county and then have them come back to us with statistics on whether or not those intersections were available. You know, unless I call or remember to call, and I've got several items like that. Drainage in McGregor with Sucker Creek. I know it's an ongoing issue with IRCA, and that's who our administration has to deal with. So they may not get their answers as quickly as what we want them, or, you know, we have some answers, but we don't have all the answers type thing. So I don't want it to disappear thinking that it's been resolved. If it were on a report, then I'd know that administration is still looking into it without having to ask, and it doesn't get lost. So I like the idea of a report tracker. We did it many years ago. I think the first or second term of council that I was on, maybe Mr. Bowman, Councillor Bowman would remember that. And it proved to be pretty useful. And then for some reason it went by the wayside. I think we switched councils and then we just dropped it, but it was very useful when we did it at one time. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Guerin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would like to see a list anyways. It doesn't, I don't really care too much about the details and prioritize or when it's going to be done, but just a list that we could have, you know, after tonight's meeting, there's 2 or 3 reports, maybe update the list, send it out to council. We can monitor our own as time goes on. But just any type of list that says, you know, it's active, it's out there would be helpful. And I don't know, I'll ask our CAO, Chris, do you see any issues with the motion that's before us right now? Like, do you see an issue putting together a list of any kind that may help us?
Chris, do you want to answer that?
Sure, through your worship. So good conversation. I appreciate it all. I know that's something we've talked about for some time, and I know it has been hanging around. So I think at the end of the day, you're right. It is a struggle sometimes to maintain where we're at. Truly, though, for administration, our report tracker are your council resolutions. Your council resolutions are what guide us, and the strategic plan. So part of the strategic plan initial report was to, when we identified that in October and we finalized that in October, was to come back in March with an update on that. We all know what happened in March, April, which has pushed that report on the strategic plan and those updates. I want to have to you before budgets. So your mind is thinking about your strategic plan while you're thinking about budgets. So yeah, I think what I can look at least to start. I agree with the comments on the politics of prioritizing. I've talked to many CAOs in the region. I've got a good relationship with all of them. Some do have something, some don't. The ones that do stress that the politics of prioritizing do come into play. Why is yours done? Why is mine not done? And then also, I know Deputy Mayor Malash noted, sure, the dates can change if things happen or need to change, but that always creates a bit of a conflict, on the end of, responding to why. So I do think putting that information to council to identify your list of resolutions and have that updated after every council meeting, and it can be, the resolution, what was required of it, and if it's come to fruition or not. And I think that would help council in terms of, and staff in terms of making sure that these things stay on track, because you are right. Some of them do fall to the wayside. Priorities jump in and out. But having that paper identified after every meeting, I think would be beneficial for everybody. So if that's something at least council is okay to start with, provide that spreadsheet of resolutions from all meetings, regular meetings, special meetings, and wherever they come from, and then endeavor to come back to council with the strategic plan update where we're at, then definitely that's something we can move forward with.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else? Councillor Verbeek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think at the beginning, perhaps Councillor Vaughn got a little bit into the weeds when she was talking about, looking at the strategic plan as a whole and all. When I looked at this, just asking for the report tracker, it just made a whole sense. I heard Deputy Mayor, say how sometimes he's wondering about other people's reports, but doesn't really want to bombard Chris with phone calls from everybody. I just had 3 days ago, I had someone ask me about one of the reports that Deputy Mayor requested, and I said, I don't know, I don't know where that's at, but I don't know if he's already called about it. I'll, talk to him after the meeting. So yeah, I just think it could be a really useful tool for and sure, it all upon staff in the end to prioritize when they're going to get to these resolutions or reports. But at least if we have them to follow up on and to answer our constituents when they ask us about them, right? So I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Van Anolen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm always opposed to bigger government, so I'm opposed to this because this is definitely going to mean bigger government. This is a classic way that governments waste money. It seems innocuous. Oh, we're just going to ask where things are right now. But before you know it, every job in town hall now has to be accounted for every week, because often there's a meeting every week, and everything has to. This will be like thousands of little events, thousands, as somebody who worked in an office all his life, that have to be recorded and added to the list, and someone has to manage the list, and then this is going to become, I think, a real weaponized bit of bureaucracy that people are going to use to sort of harass and demoralize administration, because they're able to point to this and wave it, and we're allowed to ask anything we want, any meeting, every week. That's enough. We don't need some sort of official note to hold up like a flag to carry around. This is unnecessary. It's just bureaucracy. It means that we're just substituting paper shuffling for actual work. And if you're a bureaucrat, you think that meetings and talking and paper shuffling is great, but it's a waste of time for taxpayers. So I'm opposed to this.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? Councillor Bondi.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I hit the wrong thing. I believe if it's my motion, I get to speak last. I get scolded for emails, right? We can't go to town hall because there's COVID there, right? I have children. I'm not going to, run in the office and meet with certain directors. I've gone through and I've found some things. Maybe other councillors can add. I'll send that report later. But sometimes we have 3 weeks between meetings. And I have been asking certain councillors, where's the status of your report? Because like Councillor Verbeek said, I've been asked about school safety zones. Last year in 2019, we had a report on affordable housing, or we asked for a report on affordable housing. That is something that is an urgent priority in our municipality. So I would like to have updates and see where we are. So, sending emails doesn't seem to work. I don't want to get scolded for calling people. This isn't something new either. Councillor Caxero when he was on council in the last term, tried to get a tracking system up there. So I don't want anything to fall off the map. I believe this can be done with minimal effort. We did recently hire a part-time assistant for our CAO. This is something that it takes 20 minutes after a council meeting to put in all of the direction that we as council have done. And then we can track it. And then at least we have communication. This is the best transparent way to let our constituents know that we're on track with the items that they've asked for. So with that being said, Mr. Mayor, I would also like a recorded vote, please.
Yeah, thank you. I will not be supporting it myself, so. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll read the motion again. That council requests the town of Essex administration to implement a council report tracker similar to the reporting spreadsheet used by the town of Lakeshore. We'll start with Councillor Bondi. How do you vote?
Support.
Okay, we'll go back. Councillor Guerin, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor Bowman, how do you vote?
Opposed?
Councillor Verbeek, how do you vote?
Support.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Milosh, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor Bjorkman, how do you vote?
Opposed.
And Councillor Vanderdolen, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Mayor Schneider, how do you vote?
Opposed.
So that is 4 in support and 4 opposed. As per it is defeated. Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda is item 15.1.2 regarding the hunting license review. That council direct administration to review if it is possible to remove the requirement of a town-issued hunting license, and if possible to do so, that administration report back to council on the feasibility and process for council's consideration. Need a seconder?
Need a seconder for this one? Councillor Vanderdolen. Okay, the reason I brought this forward, okay, we sell, I don't think any other municipality sells pheasant and rabbit licenses. I think we're the only one here. I know the northern municipalities do up there, but you can hunt. Pardon me, they don't. You can hunt with a small game license. When you apply for a hunting license, you get a 3-year. You can buy a 3-year small game license, and in the northern part of Ontario, that covers rabbits, that covers partridge, all small game. But down here, okay, for some reason, I don't know why, in this municipality, we require a rabbit license. And I think, Deputy Mayor, if you recall, I think you had some input on this one too the last time, didn't you? Didn't you have hunters say why? They come here and for $5 and something for a hunting license, okay? And I think the income, Chris, did you research how much the income is on these here? Did you? How much it was?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if Mr. Morrison would like to respond, but the average income was approximately $1,000 per year.
$1,000 per year, and we have people coming in here to buy a license for $1,000 a year, and we have the ladies at the front doing their jobs. Okay, and they have to get up from their desk to go write a $5.50 license. To me, the other municipalities aren't doing it, and I would like the support from council to do away with it. I mean, to me, it's more of a headache than it is a revenue, because there's no revenue there. If you look at the long haul of it, the work that you're taking people away from their work spot to come up and write a lousy rabbit license, And to me, I think it's useless. So, but I'm going to leave that up to council. And if Jeff, did you have something to say on this, Morrison?
Through the chair, I was just going to add that it is $930 in revenue over the last 2 years. So each year we receive $930 in revenue. So just under.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave it up to council. If council has any questions, Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we should see a report back from administration, and then we'll put the report on the report tracking system that we don't have, and maybe it won't fall through the cracks. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Bannon, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm not a hunter, although I gladly eat all wild game, and so does my wife. But I think anytime we have the opportunity to remove a bureaucratic step or a bureaucratic process or a license or things that our people have to do, anytime we have that opportunity and it doesn't hurt anybody or change anything, we should take that opportunity, because we can't just keep adding this stuff forever. We should take stuff away sometimes. And I think this is something really small, inconsequential. Why not just do away with it?
Yeah,
thanks.
I agree. Anybody else from council? Councillor Bowman?
I just think what the revenue is negligible on this licensing. We have to keep the license, have somebody do it. It doesn't make any sense to do it. I would move we just suspend selling rabbit and small game license.
Yeah, it'd be pheasant and rabbit or license. Okay. Yeah, because when you buy your hunting license, you can buy a 3-year small game through the Ontario government, and that should include rabbits and pheasants, but it doesn't. But anyways, okay. Anybody else? Deputy Mayor Melange.
I second the motion.
Okay. Any other questions on it? All in favor of the motion to do away with it? Carried. Thank you, council.
Okay. Item 15.2, the following notices of motion will be presented at the September 8, 2020 regular council meeting for council's consideration. 15.2.1, Councillor Bondi regarding earlier mail out for notices of drain maintenance works. Item 15.2.2, Councillor Bondi regarding review regular council meeting agenda and procedural bylaw. And as noted earlier tonight and added by Councillor Verbeek as item 15.2.3, that in light of the correspondence shared by the province regarding regulatory framework changes to the Provincial Offences Act and the new Ontario school bus stop arm cameras, that council have a discussion on the feasibility of implementing this kind of safety measure. Okay. Item 16, reports and announcements from council members.
Councillor Bondi, anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say the Great Lakes Freshwater Alliance was down at our harbor this weekend with athletes promoting using the Great Lakes and keeping them healthy. So Councillor Bjorkman was also down there, and we were really picking some of the representatives' brains on what to do on how to keep our Lake Erie healthy. So we'll bring some information and ideas back to council at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bannon, Nolan, you have anything?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just want to remind people that the Essex Region Conservation Authority's annual bike tour is coming up in a couple of weeks. And although we can't do it the usual way, we're doing a virtual tour. I encourage people to go on IRCA's website and sign up. You can make donations, you can get pledges, you can raise a few bucks, and the money will go to the new John Ark Homestead Reception Center, which, as we know, will be doubling as the Town of Essex's tourism bureau. So I encourage people there's not that many weeks left before you know what comes. So get out on your bikes, get to IRCA's bike tour. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Verbeek, you have anything?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just want to say on Friday, Councillor Bondi held an event in Harrow, and it was Councillor's Corner or something. And I decided I was going to stop by for 10 minutes just to support my fellow councillor. And what ended up happening was there was such a great response. So many people showed up they had questions and they were really engaged, that it turned out to be a good thing I was there. I had to text my husband and tell him I was going to be late meeting him. And I actually stayed and engaged with residents while they were waiting in line to speak to the counselor. I thought it was brilliant. I really wasn't sure how it was going to go and what, I was just stopping by. I just want to encourage other counselors, maybe we should look at doing this. And if anybody else is interested, I'm happy to come by and support a fellow counselor. The residents were really happy to have this opportunity, and the outreach was really good, really effective. So I'd be happy to support anybody that wanted to, follow that lead, because it was very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Malash.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to bring up that last Friday I had a nice, beautiful day as well. I would have gone to see Councillor Bondi on her talk, but I had my 6 grandkids with me. We went to Colchester Beach. We played on the splash equipment. They kept pushing me through the water. They thought that was pretty cool. And we played on the park playground, the pirate ship, and we spent some time on the beach. And then we had a great ice cream at a new ice cream store down there at the close to the harbor. I won't say any names, but it's very close to our heart here. But we had a great time, and I just want to say to our administration, great job in straightening everything up down there. It is a friendly, family, eventful place. For all my grandkids are 5 and under, and they had a great time. Something memorable for families to do in these times of COVID, where you can't do a lot of traveling. So thanks to administration for getting that all straightened out down there in our tourist area down there. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Councillor Karen, I believe.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Bowman. Nothing tonight. I didn't miss anybody, eh?
Yeah, Bjorkman.
Huh?
Councillor Bjorkman.
Councillor Bjorkman? No, you're okay. I just want to let council know on the first 2 weeks of next August. Yeah, I'll be on vacation. So first 2 weeks of September, I'll be off, and Deputy Mayor Malash will fill in for me for the 2 weeks. That's it for me.
Okay, item 17.1, bylaws that require third and final reading. Bylaw 1939 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the August 4th, 2020 regular council meeting be read third and finally passed on August 24th, 2020.
Mover, please, on this bylaw. Councillor Bowman and Deputy Mayor Malash, all in favor? Carried.
Bylaw 1942 being a bylaw to approve the submission of an application to the Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for the long-term financing of certain capital works of the Corporation of the Town of Essex, and to authorize entering into a rate offer letter agreement pursuant to which the municipality will issue debentures to OILC, be read a first, a second, and a third, and finally adopted this August 24th, 2020.
Mover, please. Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Vandendal, all in favor? Carried.
Bylaws that require first and second reading. Bylaw 1944. Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of this August 24th, 2020 regular meeting of council of the Corporation of the Town of Essex, be read a first and second and provisionally adopted on August 24th, 2020.
Mover, please. Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Verbeek, all in favor? And I need a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Malash and Councillor Bjorkman. Thank you very much, Council. It was a very long meeting, but a lot of healthy discussion. So thank you very much and have a nice evening. No, I'll see.